And welcome to the Committee of a Whole meeting. Today is Tuesday, March the 23rd, 2021, and the time is now 9 o'clock, and we'll go ahead and begin our meeting. We do have a lot of items on the agenda today, and we also have two site visits today to the Macon-Bibb County landfill, as well as to a convenience center located just across the line in Monroe County. So we'll begin with the approval of the minutes. We do have a quorum here today. The approval of the minutes. This time we'll have a motion toward the approval of the minutes for the Committee of the Whole meeting on March the 9th, 2021. Can I get a motion? Motion by Commissioner Wilder, second by Commissioner Wynn. Any discussion in that regard? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to new alcohol beverage license. This is the alcohol beverage license located at Chevron Mart, located at 1106 Rocky Creek Road, Macon, Georgia 31210. Commissioner Watkins.
Yes, thank you, sir. And I guess I still had outstanding questions pertaining to the, I'm understanding this is a change of ownership. Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure who the representative was there.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
David Hollingsworth, Smith Hawkins, Hollingsworth, and Reeves, Macon, Georgia, on behalf of the Chevron Food Mart. I think we're here for a permanent license. We have all the licenses in place. There was some issue about whether the lottery license had been issued. We presented that to the county. And so I think the issue at hand would be that in the past, there was a gaming issue with regard to this site. And the gaming license is not going to be issued for this site at this time. And I think that was your question.
So I'm to understand that there was an issue with coin-operated gaming.
Yes, sir.
And there will be no license issued at this location, and coin-operated gaming will not take place.
The new applicant has not been allowed a license by the gaming.
Now, I just
So that was what was in the back of your mind.
So two things that slightly conflicts with what the applicant's wife or husband said here last week, and I thought we received a license from Coin Operating. I may be mistaken on that, Mr. McNeil. That's not what that was.
I think the applicant last week did indicate that they had been continuing the gaming since the change of ownership for the last couple of months. This is a relative, I guess the spouse of the former owner indicated they had been continuing the operation. So as my understanding today, you're saying that they're, at this time, they do not have permission or authority to continue the gaming, but is it your, you believe it's the intent for them to work on that, to actually have that at a later time?
I was under the impression that it may be like a 2-year probation.
Mr. Watkins.
So I mean, and I would appreciate that in a little bit more information and I just give me 1 second if you don't mind. So is there a way to confirm that 2-year probation? Is there a way to confirm that 2-year probation, because that conflicts with the items we were emailed as well?
I will be happy to provide. The one reason I'm here today is just to get the information that you need for your file. So if you want to defer it and you want me to give you some affirmative information about the gaming, I'd be delighted to do so.
That's fine with me.
Okay.
I think we need to let him know what we want so he can knows what to bring back to us. So Commissioner Watkins, if you could make a specific request so he can comply with that, we'll put it on for a later agenda.
So my concern is kind of, I guess, multifold. I think there's been a continued abuse of COAM at that location at a very high rate. Like the numbers that they reported before they went out of compliance to the Georgia Lottery were some of the highest in the community. And I am noting that seemed like the Georgia Lottery was trying to take action on that. And in between that time, it seems as though there's been a non-arm's length transaction to change ownership that seems very vague. And I'm under the impression that that's done to allow the new owner to continue to operate coin-operated machines and gaming and circumvent the actions that would have taken place at Georgia Lottery had the existing owner remained. And also at the last meeting, I received information that kind of seemed to confirm that, because the owners are all seem to be family. The current owner and past owner all seem to be family members of some close relation. And it didn't seem like any material change of the way the business was operated, or even the the operators were going to change much. So those are my concerns. So if the situation at Georgia Lottery has been alleviated to their satisfaction and they're done, then yes, but I don't want to, and that's what it seemed like also that we received on email, that the new owners had received a coin-operated license from Georgia Lottery based on them being new, unrelated people to whatever happened. So those are my concerns. Is that somewhat clear?
Okay, I think the record is unclear, and there is obviously some language barrier, so let me try to get it clear.
Okay.
But it appears to me, though, if we have our licenses from the state lottery, it appears that we come under the purviews of the county ordinances, and we would be allowed to operate, whether there's gaming or not. Is there a different opinion amongst you?
Well, I think that's a legal determination. That has nothing to do with Commissioner Watkins' opinion on whether or not he wants to support the renewal or not. But I think we're on the same page. If you can get that information for us, we're going to defer this to April the 13th, our regular committee meeting, and then I'll have Commissioner Watkins get specific questions to our county manager, our attorneys for you, and then we can be prepared to answer those and take a final vote at that time.
Okay, I appreciate your endeavor with regard to this application.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. That item's still on the table, by the way, so nothing need to be done on there. We're going to move on for items for financial consideration. Item A is a resolution authorizing the acceptance of a Violence Against Women's Act grant for programming year 2020 from the Georgia Criminal Coordinating Council in the amount of $50,000 with no local match requirement. That motion is sponsored by myself. Can I get a second? Second by Pro Tem Clark. Any discussion in that matter? Commissioner Lucas?
Yes, sir. I'd like to be listed as a co-sponsor. And is there anybody that has any additional information as to, have we received this before?
We have.
This particular one?
Yes, ma'am.
I would be interested in knowing how it's been used, the previous grants.
Okay.
Does anybody? That's just for information, because I want to make sure it's just not going into the pot somewhere, that there's an actual, right, there's action. So that would be it.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Lucas. No further questions. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Please add her as a sponsor to that, and we'll add that to consent agenda. Item B is an ordinance to authorize a budget transfer from the Sheriff's Office budget in the amount of $20,000 to provide funds for contract labor services to cover duties of retired employees. That's my motion. Can I get a second? Second. Second by Pro Tem Clark. Any discussion, questions that matter? Commissioner Watkins.
It's a small amount of money, but I was just curious as to what does it mean by retired employee.
Dr. Moffitt, please explain.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. Over the last 2 months, he had a change in his Office of Finance, and he brought a retiree in to assist in those regards. And he's currently hiring a new finance director. So during that interim period, he had a retiree that knew the system pretty well working for him. Again? No, I have not shared that. I mean, Commissioner Tillman just asked. Our current Assistant Finance Director, Ms. Roberts, has been selected to fill the sheriff's, what's the official title? CFO? What's the sheriff? Financial manager position. So Ms. Roberts actually started over there on yesterday.
To answer your question, Commissioner Watkins? Thank you. Seeing no other questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries, will be sent to consent agenda. An ordinance to authorize budget transfer from the Sheriff's Office budget fuel line items to the vehicle repair line item in the amount of $25,000 to fund repairs to vehicles for the Corrections Division. That's my motion. Can I get a second? Got a second by Commissioner Howell. Any questions in that regard? Commissioner Watkins?
Just curious, is this for outside contracts or vehicle maintenance? We've gone back and forth with that over the years.
Yes, sir. We have gone back and forth, and yes, sir, this is for outside contracts, but the sheriff is making a stronger effort to use vehicle maintenance in-house when appropriate. But yes, this is for outside.
Thank you, Mr. Watkins. Any other questions? Seeing no other questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries, will be sent to consent agenda. Item D is an ordinance to authorize a supplemental appropriation from the probate court costs and fees, charges line items to the probate court budget, dues and fees, other line item in a total amount of $80,000 to provide funds for the processing of the weapons carrying license. That is my motion. Can I get a second? Got a second by Commissioner Wilder. Brief explanation on this. This involves no additional monies. This is simply a in and out pass through. Evidently, they've had a lot more license requests this last year than previously, and we still have 5 months left. So the probate court is making her best guess on what they anticipate the funds needed for it. But basically, these funds get taken in and they get paid by the applicant and spent out. So that is her request from Judge Paribas. Judge Lucas, I'm sorry, Commissioner Lucas.
Thank you. I just, this is a related, this is related. In this chamber, it seems like a few years ago we had an explanation that people could bring, I know I'm stretching this a little bit, but it's kind of on guns. We were told that someone could bring a gun in that, according to, maybe the attorney can tell us where we are as far as, because we don't have any metal detectors or anything like that. So anyone could just tell us where we are as far as weapons in the chamber or in the government center.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I can get you that explanation by next week.
Okay.
Huh? I'm sorry.
I bought guns here. All of us were bringing our guns now. My bad.
Commissioner, I can get you that information.
Okay, because before we were told that, anybody could come in, that there was no prohibition in the state of Georgia as far as weapons are concerned.
I think there is a prohibition, but we'll check on that for you. We have an armed guard outside that protects us here for these meetings as well as the general public. But I do know that there are some restrictions from going in, just like the courthouse. You can't go through the courthouse and take your weapon, although they do have a pre-screening process to make sure that you're not doing that. But I asked Attorney Gruber to get that information prepared for you for the next meeting. Thank you, Commissioner Lucas. I see no other questions on this matter. All those in favor of the matter, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. Be sent to the consent agenda. Item E is an ordinance to authorize a budget transfers from the Superior Court budget, dues and fees, juror fees, line items to small equipment line items in the amount of $18,500 to fund flooring upgrades for certain Superior Court offices. That's my motion. Can I get a second? Second by Commissioner Wynn. Any question in this regard? Hearing no questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Commissioner Watkins, did you have a question?
So not about that motion, but we just got through passing quite a few budget transfers of small amounts. And I remember last time we were here, the coroner's office said they had a budget shortfall problem, and I've now seen that several times on the news. I know also when we were here that we discussed, and I thought it was resolved, but I hadn't heard from it since, that the COVID CARES Act funds was an eligible place for him to, or for the coroner's office to use to offset those changes. But it still, as of the last time I saw something on the news, it still seemed like a stressful situation.
Couple of things. Number one, these are moving within the budget, so these are not shortfalls, so they're different from Coroner Jones's request. So this is just moving items within the budget for, like I said, the Superior Court offices here. These are not that they run out of money and they need additional funds.
So they're short on expenses.
Right. But to answer your question, this is within their budgeting, though. They're just shifting money from one place to
I mean,
another.
they're blessed enough where their offices have dues, fees, and those type of things, the nature of what they do. But on the expense side, they've had an overrun,
Yeah.
or a shortfall, or something short because we're here. Otherwise,
That's certainly
it
one way
could've
to look at it. Or you can say that they're,
It's fair. Okay.
yeah. Or you can
But-
say that they use their money properly and they're able to budget because they have more experience in the process, and et cetera, et cetera. But let's vote on this, and we'll talk about your issue just after this, unless it affects this particular vote.
I thought we had voted.
Okay.
Okay.
All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. Okay. Thank you for that. We are working with Commissioner Coroner Jones. We met his temporary need in regards to his overage that he has. It appears to be mostly overages because of mileage from some of his staff. Some of his staff does not get paid an hourly salary. It's not really considered staff. But they submit miles, so it's hard to budget that because you're not sure how many miles they're going to do. We are using the CARES Act money to shore that up for him, and we're trying to determine the amount of money to get him through May, and then have some discussions with him in regards to how to better situate his budget for next year. He has a shortfall every year, so I mean, it's one of those things where we have to take a look at. I did see that DFAX did respond to his previous information that he presented at last meeting that we had. They had a difference of opinion about the $700, but I think we're going to work through those issues with a meeting between our staff and the staff at DFAX to help him appropriate his budget. Okay. Okay, we'll move on to item F, is a ordinance to authorize a supplemental appropriation to the engineering department in the total amount of $25,000 to provide funds for the installation of speed awareness signs and purchase traffic calming devices. That motion is sponsored by Commissioner Mallory Jones, Commissioner Paul Bronson, and myself. Commissioner Jones or Bronson, would you like to make those motions? Got a motion by Commissioner Bronson, second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion in that regard? Commissioner Lucas, you have a question?
Yeah, I'd certainly like to be added to that as a representative of the Pedestrian Safety Review Board, but I'd like to just hear a little bit more
Sure.
from the sponsors.
I'll let Dr. Moffitt address that, but I do know that we're going to be adding this particular item as a budget item to fund the next year's budget for commissioners who have constituents concerns about speed bumps, signage, lights, and things of that nature. So we'll be able to run that similar to we do other programs to make sure that we adequately address the issues across the entire county with equity.
Okay, that's good too. And on those speed bumps, people need to use that, the humps, they need to use that as the last resort because those just create a whole lot of damage to cars. But there are alternative things, a speed table, and there are a number of different designs of traffic calming devices that can be used in neighborhoods. So they don't need to just go to the cement hump, which creates more problems, and then they want it taken out. So I just wanted to mention that.
Right.
As
I think
people are talking to different constituents.
they're going to come up with a process. I don't think they're all the concrete bumps that we've been familiar with throughout our life. Some of these are rumble strips. Yeah. Some of these are actually the rubber bumpers that can be easily removed, so they're not very expensive. So I think there's multiple things, and we'll bring that process before, just like we have on the new lighting. There's a process for these speed bumps, and we're working through that process now to present to commission at a later date. Does that answer all your questions, Commissioner Lucas?
Yes.
Thank you. Pro Tem Clark, you had a question?
No, wait, it was answered.
Thank you. Commissioner Wynn, you have a question?
Yes, just a little question. The speed awareness signs, are those just speed limit signs? What are what's the difference?
Commissioner Jones, is that your answer?
Speed awareness signs, is my understanding, like we have in a few locations, are the ones that flash and tell you going as you approach them too fast, too fast, too fast, slow, slow, and then it's got the speed limit in that area, so it actually slows down the traffic as they're approaching it. There's one on Ingleside, for instance.
I thought that's what traffic calming
There
devices
was one on
do.
Wimbish, which needs to be put back, but it's been out of order for several weeks. But
So are those particular ones movable? Can we move them to different locations?
you can.
And is it run off the power of the sun, solar powered?
Some of those are solar powered.
Some of them are.
I've seen them in other communities where they're great. They're solar powered and we don't have to worry about them. So some they're gonna be spread around the community and then can be moved if we need to move them?
It can be. We're going to budget that as an expense item for next year's budget and allow commissioner input on that to determine if you've got needs in your own district.
I'm very much in favor of it. I don't want you to think I'm not. I just had some questions about it too. And the speed bumps, we had an issue on Lock Choppy where they put in the speed bumps and it just about busted a car if you went over it slowly. I went and tried it.
Right.
And so they replaced it with something you can now straddle and not even have a speed bump.
Yeah.
So the replacement wasn't good either.
Speed awareness sign is not a speed bump.
Oh, I know.
And the speed bumps are prohibited in many cases by traffic engineering because of emergency vehicles. So they can't, if it's a connector street.
Just want it,
they don't want
in
those.
neighborhoods, want it to be the right kind of speed bump, hump, whatever it is.
Speed awareness sign, it's a flashing sign.
Yeah, well, I've run into those before,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Wynn. Commissioner Watkins?
Thank you, sir. I was curious how I assume a traffic calming device is something like a speed bump or a speed table or something like that, right? Yes. Okay. And how much per installation of those? How much does one of those cost?
Dr. Moffitt?
I'll allow Commissioner, well, not allow, but Commissioner Bronson, you want to tell them what you requested?
So what we requested, for instance, as a connector road, right, being that we had a sit down with the safety department and so forth, what we're looking at doing is using speed cushions. We keep utilizing
Cushions?
speed cushions. A little bit different from speed bumps. What speed cushions allows the fire trucks, for instance, emergency vehicles to basically straddle that piece of it and maneuver through. It's the right width for their tires, so they can get right through in the event of emergency. But it also calms down the speed for anybody that's coming up to it. It doesn't do much damage to the bottom of the vehicle and so forth, and they're easy to install. Cost-wise, it's very cost-efficient on that end because you're looking at basically roughly in between the $2,000 to $5,000 for a set, and that set basically comes in threes. So, I mean, that's based on the budget that we have right now. I think we're pretty much good to go with that, and I'll yield to.
So and help me out. So the $25,000 y'all have already earmarked the locations that you have in mind, or is there room within that $25,000 for me to add a couple speed cushions to Beaumont Heights and Monroe Street?
There's a pad there. The reason we did 25,000 because we contemplated some commissioners immediately want to use them in other areas. I think originally it was like $7,500 and another.
Right, it's $7,500 on my end.
So we went ahead, instead of keep coming back, we want to go ahead and put 25,000 there. If you've got a request, we'll be happy to do the same. And we're trying to get the budget time.
All right. So do y'all already? So yeah, motion to amend to add Beaumont Heights and Monroe Street. I think you're familiar with the Beaumont already. We got a couple emails on that
Okay.
one.
I'll take that as a friendly amendment. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Lucas. Any further discussion on this regard? Commissioner Lucas?
Mayor, it might be appropriate too, since you have an organization that works with this, and we have a consultant who provides additional information to the board, that we maybe have a short presentation on traffic calming and all of the different kinds of things that we have worked on, just to show everybody what's possible in your neighborhoods, because people don't want big old ugly stuff put in neighborhoods just to slow down traffic. But there are newer devices and methods that can be used in neighborhoods that are just as effective. Here in Macon, we've had bike walk that's gone and painted intersections, painted large drawings and things on the street. That's traffic calming, and that's something that we can consider. But there are a lot of things that you really never even thought about that are traffic calming. Narrowing the street, and putting in more parking on some area. All of that's traffic calming, and I think it would be a good idea for maybe a short presentation to everybody on what's possible. And then you can kind of modify and see what you need in your own district. And I just wanted to make that as a suggestion.
Oh, I duly noted. I think that would be an excellent idea to have prior to budget time so we can kind of look at what we want to have. We can educate the public about that because I know in particular I have numerous requests for this children playing in neighborhoods and people flying through there and trying to educate them in the process. Actually, even many residents of Houston County have reached out to me because they have similar complaints there and saw that we were looking at doing some things here in Macon-Bibb County. So if you could reach out to your consultant and put them in touch with me, I'll be happy to schedule them on the
Okay.
agenda in the upcoming. Any other question on this motion? We have an amended motion offered by Commissioner Watkins. Yes, sir.
Sorry, I just wanted to make a note in regard to Commissioner Watkins'
writing.
proposed amendment to add the streets. The way this ordinance is drafted, it doesn't name any specific streets. It doesn't have any
Okay.
like specific traffic plans. So I think the flexibility is there. I don't think an amendment is necessary.
That satisfy you, Commissioner Watkins?
If we all have a gentleman's or a stately understanding of the situation, I can deal with a handshake agreement. But
It is, I will send that to Nigel, and Nigel will have to do the first part as a study to do the justification for it, but I will.
oh, wait a minute. It got real shaky then.
No. We working through it. The mayor said we working through this process, but I will go ahead and tell Nigel to go ahead and do those 2 streets to get the numbers for the justification.
All right, appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Watkins. President?
What would the sponsor's actual plan? Maybe that needs to be stated because I'm clear on what I'm expecting. So make sure y'all are clear on what y'all are expecting.
I think Bronson and Jones, you're aware of what you requested and what we're going to be giving you?
These were not for specific streets, to my
Okay.
knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
Pro Tem Clark.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify finally that we have this ordinance sets up a process by which we, I guess, apply or flag places like because I've got multiple requests in the neighborhoods I represent too, Corbin Avenue, Bartlett Crossing, I've gotten a bunch of these. I just want to clarify that if we right now we don't need to amend those sections in, we need to at a later date go to the county manager and say, hey, we want these areas to be addressed. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yeah, we're going to come up with a process and let commissioners have input, and we'll determine a budget amount to fund those for the next year. Thank you, Commissioner Clark. We do have a motion and a second. No further question. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries, will be sent to consent agenda. Move on to an ordinance to authorize the amendment to fiscal 2021 for capital improvement program in the amount of $1,225,000, of which $350,000 will be paid from fund balance, and the remainder shall be paid from the 2018 SPOS revenue. That's my motion. Can I get a second? Got a second by Commissioner Jones. A question in this regard. We did attach some items for your consideration of what these purchases were for. Specifically out of the general fund, you had the city hall, a couple $100,000. You have $50,000, and you also have, I think, the vehicles for the district attorney for $100,000. Okay, there's an exhibit. I want to make sure everybody received those, and you should have received some pictures in your package as well. Okay. Hear no questions. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously, sent to consent agenda. Item H is a ordinance to extend the deadline for one-time safe haven period for the late payment of business license to June the 30th, 2021, to extend the renewal deadline for 2021 business license fees. That is sponsored by Commissioner Jones. I know Commissioner Wynn asked to be a co-sponsor, so can I entertain a motion from you two? Commissioner Jones?
So moved.
Commissioner Wynn, would you like to make a second? And Commissioner Bronson, did you have a question?
Yes, I was asking to be moved as a sponsor for that as well.
Yes, sir. We'll add you as a sponsor as well. And I saw our tax commissioner, Wade McCord, here. Commissioner McCord, would you like to be heard on this and give a brief update on the financial success of this endeavor recently?
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Be very brief. This has been a pretty significant change in the way that Bibb County does its processes. We've seen some success here. Just to let you know, we started out with sending out approximately 9,000+ letters to businesses that may or may not have had a business license since 2014. And as of this morning when I left office, not counting today's mail, we're caught up with right at 2,000 business licenses that have been processed. However, we estimate, really no basis for this, but we're estimating just by past numbers and some hypothesis, to be honest with you, that there's probably about 5,000 to 7,000 businesses out there that are active in Bibb County, actively conducting business. But again, we're sitting at 2,000 that have renewed. And so Commissioner Jones's his amnesty period got a lot of good buyback and feedback, I guess, from the community, showed some goodwill with the commission. And looking at the numbers that we have and hearing businesses that come in talk about how their business was affected by COVID-19, with the realization that we've collected right at 1.6 million so far on just business license, general business license applications, with tens of thousands of dollars being past delinquencies that that people are paying. We actually, just a note, I won't name the business, but we had a very highly trafficked fast food franchise that's downtown Macon that just never realized they hadn't renewed in 4 years, and they paid us $10,000+ for their past renewals. So with COVID-19 and everything else that we've withstood for the past by a year, I think it's a good show of I guess allegiance to the community and everything like that for y'all to go forward with this, and I appreciate the opportunity to help and assist wherever I can.
Thank you, Commissioner.
All right.
Commissioner Watkins, you have a question?
And no problem with the we call it the amnesty period. Just more of a couple general questions. Because I always thought we had more businesses than 5 to 7. What was do you know of the number of actual renewals or the amount that we received last year in total?
We have not been able to identify that with the data that we've pulled over from business license.
Wait.
We have seen where payments are made and businesses.
Like what else would the data tell us other than how many clients we had and how much money we received? It just seemed like the big two things. I may be mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, money is there, and that's reported through your audit and everything. But as far as the number of actual business licenses, we have not made. We've got a number of right at 6,300, I believe it was, thereabouts, and don't quote me on that number, that were renewed last year. But some of those had 2021 deadline dates, and of course, it's supposed to be deadlined in 2020. So not all the data was accurate, so I'm hard pressed to put a number on something that I can't control. Our process is building a new database to where we can have those numbers at the drop of a hat, and they're definitive numbers that I can stand behind.
And you don't do in the issuing of tax bills every year for property, you don't delineate between residential and commercial and industrial?
No, tax bills, when I can tell the difference, but we don't delineate. We have 68,346 parcels, and those are made up of residential, industrial, agricultural, and other strata, but we do not differentiate.
There's no report that says how many parcels are agricultural, how many are residential.
I can
or
have
commercial?
that report. The answer is yes, out of my database. Unfortunately, like I said, the New World database, we weren't able to migrate any of that information forward. That's why we did a shotgun approach to the renewal letter, sending them out to any and everybody that may or may not have had a business license. Just as an example, yesterday, I believe it was, business come in and we were looking everywhere. He said he renewed. He didn't have a business license, which he didn't have a copy of. We searched database, the whole New World database, and one of our coworkers was able to find where he paid, but that was as far as it went, and there was it was not on any of our reports or anything of that nature. It was just a paid receipt in the old New World system.
So I'm curious, because I know New World is a fairly large, big organization, robust, hundreds of cities use them. The level of who accesses the New World system to pull data, and have we invested in high-level training for them? And can we? I know there's a lot of and maybe we do every month. I was just asking.
I can't speak for other areas. I can tell you that when we first started this process, right at a year ago, when you all voted for a business license to come over to me, I will tell you that we sat down, Ms. Juhan with the IT department, contacted New World representative that did an in-depth training with us, and they saw flaws in input and things of that nature, and the gentleman himself could not give us answers in the questions we were asking about definitive businesses and things of that nature. So training wise, I can't speak to that. Maybe.
No, you said it.
Okay. Other than that one training session, how often do we engage?
I couldn't tell you that. I don't use New World.
Okay.
When my relationship with New World as far as business license ended when we approached them after confirmation from the commission. We wanted to go to an online version to be able for taxpayers to be able to renew online, to be able to do the whole process online instead of submitting documents after documents year after year after year, the same things. It was cumbersome. So when we approached them about using a credit card company that is nationwide that we use, they took 3.5, almost 4 weeks to give us a response. He can vouch for this, to give us a response, me personally, and I told them this, that I think they were stalling because they knew our timeline so that they could launch their new software supplement that would take credit cards online. Has a working relationship with the company I use, but New World chose not to use them.
So help me out. So New World is not the database that you use.
That is correct.
Who do we use now?
I use System Automation, which is the process that I have is my license one. They actually wrote it for us. They have 30 million users nationwide. They are primarily in, I think, for every board they have. They are strictly licensing software.
Okay. And if I'm understanding, you inputted 9,000, I guess that's our total possible business world database, and you're assuming how much money we received in a much easier format, I assume?
It's very much easier to allow taxpayers to renew online next year once this database is built for all people who are renewing renewing this year. If nothing changes, they can basically go online, make about 5 clicks, put in their credit card, and the business license will be mailed to customers, if you will, that are really looking forward to it. The other part of this is once the renewal period is over, we are going to strive to have the ability for taxpayers and businesses to be able to send us information and have a portal on our website where people can report businesses that are being conducted without being licensed if they don't see it in there, and then we can investigate those.
Thank you,
Yes,
Mr. Watkins. Mr. Jones, you had a follow-up?
Just back to the ordinance, Commissioner McCord, and I appreciate you coming in, and I appreciate Frank Howard working on this. The success of this, just for the commission's sake, has been outstanding based on increased collections. You told me not hundreds, but tens and tens of thousands of dollars have come in due to this. And what this simply does is, many of the business community has told you, we're scraping, trying to make it with the COVID, and an additional 90 days would help us recover and should continue to increase collections, which was the whole point of it.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I do believe that. Like I said, I think the goodwill part is there. If y'all decide to pass this, businesses are out there actively working to get their business license done, I'm assuming. And like I said, we've had a lot of comments about the impact of COVID-19 on the businesses, and the ones that have renewed so far are grateful that y'all extended that amnesty.
Yeah, and of course this, if they pay by the June 30th, then there are no delinquent penalties or interest, and that was the whole point of it, to incentivize them to get together, because so many people didn't realize they hadn't paid it, just because they many cases didn't get the notice.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Commissioner Lucas?
Thank you. I recently went through the process of renewing my business license, and it was really a a smooth process, and I have to compliment your office. All of the operations, you know, where you get your tags, when you pay your garbage, all of those things I've noticed have gone very, very smoothly. So I want to say publicly how pleased I am to experience that kind of thing. I knew we had a lot of problems, a lot of things that needed to be more user friendly, and in your office I found that. And one or two little glitches were straightened out, you know, by your staff. So I want to express that. And you've already answered the other question about why this is important to do this, because people could look at it as you do our forgiving monies that we need to be taking in. Really, that's what we're doing. But the bottom line is that it's going to help us in the long run. So I'm prepared to support it.
Thank you so much. We have great coworkers down there. Thank
Mr. Wynn, you had a follow-up? Do you have a comment?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner McCord, for coming in this morning with your time and your efforts. You are doing a good job down there. Met some of your staff, and I think they're very good at what they do and want to do a good job. Just from my understanding and for the public's understanding, so if you've gotten in about 2,000 and you sent out notices or tax bills on 9,000,
Yes, ma'am.
what's the follow-up plan on those? I know if we approve this, we're extending their time to come in and pay up their bill, really. But what do we do other than that? And you say we can also report businesses we see without a license too, if they don't renew them. But what's our follow-up step on these 5,000 or 6,000 that don't?
Gotcha. So what will happen is if you all approve this measure, this ordinance, then what we will be doing is reallocating some budget or some line items and some money in our budget to make sure we have enough money to send out another letter to all the businesses one more time that have not that has had a business license that we've not renewed, and telling them what the deadline is and that the amnesty period will end there unless you all choose to extend it. That's on you all. But that the amnesty period will end there, and that penalties will go on not only for the current year, but based upon the ordinance and your past ordinance, then all delinquent years will be owed as well, as far as the interest and penalty, which is quite significant. Automatically 10% on the admin fee, and then 1.5% monthly. And if you're talking about a business who is, for whatever reason, hasn't renewed in 3 or 4 years and they have a few employees, that's pretty significant. Yeah. So we'll be sending out another notice to make sure that we capture as much as we can and to get people to be notified. And then for your other part of your question about the reporting side of the house, we're working with System Automation, which is the company, to have a link or to have a spot on our website where it can be reported, and then whatever needs to happen after that. It is going to be a little touchy, and we'll be working with legal to do that, to see where the extent is that we can go out there to question businesses. My job, I don't want to be seen as harassing folks or whatever, but I believe that if we do our research with databases, Secretary of State, and other databases, and finding out how properties are zoned and things of that nature, we can probably solve a lot of the issues with just a phone call.
Okay, so if we approve this, which we will in a few minutes, you're going to start sending letters out April 1st or something like that?
I'm going to try April 15th at the latest. I should have enough time to pull in all the data of all the ones that have issued, and then run some queries with the 9,000 that we sent out and try to balance it all out. But yes, ma'am, there will be another letter go out that gives people plenty of time.
So that gives them 2 or 3 months to come in and try to
yes, ma'am, probably in 45 to 60 days.
Again, thank you for what you do and your hard work for your staff down there.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Just wanted to echo my sentiments. It's interesting you brought up something, brought something back to my attention when we were dealing with New World under the former administration. it was said that Superior Court Clerk office was the only one that didn't fall in line for New World, and they were kind of ridiculed as being an oddball. But to sit here and hear you just say some of the things that office said, just I guess justifies, you know, how some departments are looked upon. And so I know that they're using the HR's New World, but that case management has been an issue for a lot of folks. So it's just good to hear you say that, because until you just said that, I never heard any other department say that I just thought that was the only Superior Court clerk that was not using New World. And you the first one outside of her in that office that have said that publicly. And so this hadn't been a great system. And I know we're talking about something else, but you just brought that memory back of how we look at and treat certain department heads versus others. And you're the first one outside of that department I've heard say that.
Yes, sir.
So you just lent some credence to something that you don't even realize that what you just did today.
No,
about that system. And I know it's not perfect, but I know our HR uses it and some of our other departments, but your office and Superior Court Clerk office seems now that y'all might be the ones that just understand that these folks wasn't doing what they supposed to be doing. But we were sold this thing on New World, and everybody had to learn it. But what you just said is appreciative.
Yes, sir. We do use it for HR purposes and through the finance system, so that it makes everything run smoothly with y'all's reporting and with the HR section and everything. But I can tell you that my limited experience with it, with the business license, when they tried, in my opinion, hold us hostage to get us to come to there because of time constraints, I was done with them. But that's just my opinion.
Thank you, Commissioner Tillman, and thank you, Commissioner McCord, for everything you do. We do hear great things about your office and our personal experiences that we have. I've been very successful this year. We look forward to a time next year when we can get accurate information based on your 1 year taking over the license, as well as the alcohol fees. So I know that you collected the money, but the money didn't really correlate with the number of licenses we have, and that's why we started this process of seeking there. So we certainly appreciate you coming here today and spending your time with us. We do have a motion and second and no further discussions. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and be sent to consent agenda. Next item is item I. We have three sponsors on that, Commissioner Jones, Commissioner Bronson, and Commissioner Wynn. This is a resolution requesting the issuance of a request for proposal, RFP, regarding the installation and maintenance of surveillance cameras to deter littering among public roadways. One of you give a motion on that? Got a motion by Commissioner Bronson, second by Commissioner Jones. Discussion? Commissioner Wilder.
I'd like to be added to that.
Okay, Commissioner Wilder would like to be added to that. And Pro Tem Clark? Added him. And we'll have a question from Commissioner Jones. I see Commissioner Howell as well.
Just to comment, I think Tim Wilder's here, our director. I just wanted to ask him if he'd come up just a minute.
That's what happens when you show up to a meeting.
You know, Macon is such a beautiful city, but it's a trash city. And I think Director Wilder can confirm, because many times I have called him about different streets, and you confirm if this is not true. You send a crew out there and clean it up, it's spotless, and 3 weeks later it looks the same way.
Yes, sir.
You run into that often, right? All over Bibb County.
Yes, sir.
And we were looking for some data. Maybe Dr. Moffat's got it as far as collection, or maybe you have it, Tim. I don't know.
I also have it. I had forwarded it to Dr. Moffat,
okay.
too.
Tell us what you collected in Public Works last year.
Last year it was a little over 22,000 pounds, which is a little over 11 tons. And we closed out over 800 C-Click fix tickets for just litter by itself.
Closed out what now?
804 C-Click fix tickets for just litter by itself.
So your department picked up over 11 tons of trash.
That's correct.
Yeah, it's just a staggering amount. So this is just to send out an RFP to see if we can get surveillance. If we don't change behavior, unfortunately, we have people in our county who roll down the window and throw it out. They think the whole world's a trash can. So if we don't change that behavior, so that's my intent on doing this is let's have an RFP to see what surveillance cameras would cost, and if we can install those at X number of locations, kind of like what we're doing with the school zones, then we can legal can help us construct something that will help change behavior, and that's the only way we're going to be a clean city, and it impacts every person in this community. It impacts whether industry wants to come here. It impacts, and if it does that, it impacts jobs, and so it's an economic for us to have a littered city, in my view.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Watkins, you had a question?
I guess I've heard the conversation before. I've been wanting us to install cameras, particularly around those hotspot illegal dumps. I know you primarily deal with, I guess, litter. When I think of litter, I think of the cup being thrown from the car and that type of thing.
That's correct.
That's primarily what you're doing along the roadways.
But that, and we also teamed up with solid waste and Parks and Beautification to tackle the illegal dumping too.
Right, and I guess so. I'm anticipating that the goal is those hotspot illegal dumps where we've got the trucks backing in and putting off tires and those type of things are the things that we're targeting with this.
Commissioner Watkins, just want to clear something up. Code enforcement is handling the illegal dump cameras and video on that is already in process, and we'll be bringing something before commission on a budgetary item in the near future on that. What I think this RFP does is trying to determine where we're getting all this trash from and trying to deter trash that we see people throw out the window. A lot of stop sign curves. I mean, people, every curve you go to, you're going to see trash because they think they're out of sight, out of mind. And I think at a lot of the stop signs, and we know the areas, and certainly we're going to depend on the community as where the commissioners to tell us where those areas are. And this is it's an RFP, so we don't know what they may bring back and what they may offer right now. So we're speculating, but it is a good first step getting this out there.
It strikes me that in order to catch that level of criminality, littering, that we would almost need 360 view of our city at all times. Like that's a lot of cameras to be able to do that. Like we don't even have enough cameras downtown to catch people breaking in cars, and that takes, like, the cameras we have don't exactly hit the right angle and all darkness and all that. So again, kid walking down the street throwing his McDonald's bag on the ground is going, the level of hours of film that need to be recorded. Like, again, the reason we really hadn't expanded much on the Georgia, and the best thing we have is the Georgia Power Light Pole site view cameras, which we can professional service out. And that's what the sheriff's office has used and is using, and they provide. But our hold up there is that we can't afford I think we got like 15 now, and there's haven't been enough political will because of the dollar amount to just double that or triple it or whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, I yield.
Yeah, that's not entirely correct. The sheriff says he has all the money he needs to do those. We're just working through the process with Georgia Power, but we try not to advertise that to the general public because it poses a lot of security issues as well as investigative issues, just like this particular process here.
This is criminality that you're trying to affect with cameras, so the sheriff's office would need to write the ticket for, at this level, litter. Like, and again, the cameras that he has, he's barely able to cover the big crimes. Like we were talking about the scale and range of crimes, I think a couple of weeks ago. Like the cameras that he has currently is barely enough to cover murders and the big things, people getting hurt. And now we're trying to install enough cameras for all of it at that point, because this is the hours of film, the days, the processing. Y'all have to take this film to court of this exact person with a lawyer and everything about litter. like it will require the same level. But anyway,
I understand. We're just trying to keep the honest folk honest. You're not going to deter all the criminals out there, and it's not our intent to videotape the entire county. But if they don't know where they're at least the people who, that's why you have locks on the doors. I mean, I'm not going back and forth with you, Commissioner. Commissioner, I'm not going back and forth. I'm just making a comment right now. I'm going to move on to Commissioner Lucas, and if you want to talk back again, I'll move back on you. Okay. Commissioner Lucas.
Yeah, I have a similar concern about the numbers, but this is just a request for proposals.
Right.
And I think it's probably going to be impractical for us to install and maintain surveillance cameras for deterring littering, because as Commissioner Watkins stated, folks are littering all over. I think the measures that are being put in place now, the cleanups, the people turning in spots where they see litter, and the city's focus on cleaning up, I think those things are working. I think they'll continue to work. I just think the cost of putting cameras everywhere that you need them will be an expense that we just can't imagine. Because I would like to have littering stopped on every street in every neighborhood that I represent. And I'm sure everybody else would as well, but that's not practical. So I'd be interested in knowing what comes back as far as information on this. I don't think I can support it because I really do think it's not practical for us to do this, because I think it's going to show that the expense is just it's not going to justify us doing it.
I think the RFP is just a request for proposal, and it's free. So I'd appreciate it if everyone would at least allow the RFP to go out and see what it brings. And I got Commissioner Bronson's light on, but I just want to say that I think it's important that we look and see what cost, if any, there is. It's not really to issue a bunch of citations, but I think we need to understand as a body what's creating this trash. Is it the trash truck? Is it the pickup trucks that have stuff flying out of the back of their trucks? Is it people going down the road and throwing it out? Is it our own people cutting grass and cutting it into 12 pieces when it started out as one piece because we haven't picked up the litter? I think it's important to get some of these high traffic areas to determine how it's being distributed so we know how to tackle it and how to attack it. Because we don't want to spend a lot of money trying to attack it the wrong way before we understand what's going on. So in my mind, it's really, it may be a deterrence. I know we may not can afford a lot of it, but I would like to find out these particular areas that get cleaned up, and then a couple of days later, how it's there again. Maybe it's just the wind blowing it from somewhere else. We need to know how it's actually getting there. And I think this will actually help us do that. It's not going to be a policing area where we give everyone citations. It's really trying to determine how the trash is getting there. Commissioner Bronson?
Thank you, sir. Hey, first and foremost, I just want to say thank you to your team. There has been a lot of movement in regards to getting areas cleaned, and I want to say thank you. Along the areas of Houston Avenue, Spike Street, and so forth, you guys have done an amazing job, and I just want to say thank you for that. Second piece of it is, our due respect, sir, we are not a trash city. We are a beautiful city with beautiful people. There are just some habits that we have to try to work to kind of break, right? So in the midst of doing that, the RFP here basically allows us the opportunity to identify key areas that we can go back in and say, hey, this is one of the hot spots. You know, we have some intersections that people decide to throw trash at. So if we can identify how we go about doing that, whether or not it's putting out more trash cans, whether or not it's educating folks and so forth on that end, then that's our job. As commissioners, as a team, I want to applaud you guys. I want to encourage you guys to continue doing what we're doing right now, and that's getting out there, rolling our sleeves up, and getting like in the dirt with our citizens and showing them that we're leading by example. So educating our citizens on See, Click, Fix, and doing those different projects throughout. So I just want to thank you for that. Mr. Mayor, thank you for what you're doing, and I yield.
Thank you, Commissioner Bronson. Thank you for those comments. I couldn't have said them any better myself, and that's entirely what we're trying to do here. Commissioner Tillman, you had a follow-up?
Yes, sir. Anything that starts off as an RFP or what have you, when we say that something's free, You know, it's a lot of work, and that I do, that I'll go, you know, and take a trip and travel for free, just to get a gig much later. Dr. Moffitt's trying to get your attention on you, so you look at your text message. I understand the intent and the deterrent that we're trying to create here. I always thought, and I still do believe, the best eyes and ears are public works, those men and women that are out there every day, seeing the debris and trash that no system has been put in place. And I've talked to previous administration, I think I even mentioned it to this one, if every day the men and women that's riding these routes would come back in and simply take a sticky note and drop it in a box, and we designate a crew every day that this is where you go to clean up the next day for your dumping sites. We've gone to, we've got a group of folks, and I could name them. 3 of us are up here. Alex Morrison, I think even the assistant county manager, Julie Moore. We've all been to Denver and Greenville and so forth and see how these folks have done this stuff. I just don't think it's ever been implemented. You know, and I'll use Houston Avenue as an example as a street that Greenville, South Carolina has at 5 or 6 o'clock when the day ends. Those public work drivers are going out there dumping dumpsters and trash. When we built Fillmore Thomas Park a few years ago, we put these beautiful, lovely trash receptacles over there, same as over there now in Pleasant Hill, back there where this interstate is. They're beautiful back there. But nobody uses them because they don't know how to use them. They don't recognize them. They think they're decoration. So at Fillmore, we end up putting just regular dumpsters. So I don't know what the RFP is going to create other than, yeah, let me go and do this and I can do it for this amount now. So the eyes and ears of the neighbors, I don't think we need an RFP. Some of us have been around long enough, Mr. Mayor, and I think you probably know a lot more of these areas than a lot of commissioners now, where these sites are. Any site that people are dumping becomes a hot spot. They just create it. Where darkness is, where nobody's traveling, they just create it. My question is, you know, as new administrations come in, a lot of you guys have been in place for years. What have you done to create your own process of the illegal dumping and identifying this stuff? You know, everybody just wants to throw money at something. What have you been doing prior to? You know, all of a sudden say, oh, now let's go and create an RFP and do all this stuff. And that's one question. What have you been doing prior to this time? The other thing is, my understanding is, do we have dummy cameras already? And are we doing a test pilot over in Pleasant Hill right now somewhere? Or are those dummy cameras? Because we're saying we're going to send out an RFP and we want to put some cameras up. Hasn't somebody already from this administration, Dr. Moffitt, and put up some cameras there? And before you answer that, and we said, well, we don't want everybody to know where they're at because of some investigation thing. Yes, we do. We want people to, we want to deter crime. We want to deter this stuff. And so I think we ought to, and that's the conversation we have with the sheriff. But your point, the dummy cameras, are they in Pleasant Hill already, in a particular area, neighborhood?
I do not want to mislead you, but I will tell you that, yes, I have gone on record saying that we have put dummy cameras out there, but the truth is no. But in trying to deter people and thinking cameras are out there, but I will say that we are in the process of putting real cameras out now. So
And I think the dummy cameras or the real ones, I think it can all be effective. And I think this commission should put people on notice
Correct.
that, and I think this administration has shown they're serious about cleaning up this community. But to hear, somebody say, well, we've cleaned it up and now it look the same. I think that's why we all have to be together and stand together on this issue. Not certain commissioners get together as a show and tell, but the whole commission, just like crime deterrent, we need to show a force, because I too appreciate Commissioner Brunson, this administration taking the initiative to show that they're serious about many other things that former commissioners that were here have been screaming and hollering about. Commissioner Jones and Wynn and myself and Lucas and Watkins, I mean, we've given y'all fits about this stuff in the last administration, but for whatever reason, it just seems, and maybe it seems that you haven't done nothing, or I don't know, this administration, for whatever reason, has publicized more of what they're trying to do.
I think that's...
And so that's why I want to go back to what was previously done versus what this administration is doing, because this administration now is getting all kudos, but some of y'all were here, prior to. And so I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, I think you're correct in saying that it's a reactive versus a more proactive approach. I think we've been very reactive over the years and taking calls. Secret Fix has been up and running. I think that with the new energy of the new administration taking a more proactive approach and changing some schedules and things of that nature, I think we're seeing the benefits of that. Matter of fact, what you saw when I was trying to get the mayor's attention was asking for 30 seconds to do a plug of exactly what Commissioner Brunson was talking about on April 10th. We're having a very exciting event in this community, Making Matters, where you can, we're challenging groups, we're challenging organizations, we're challenging everyone in this community to get out on April 10th and clean your neighborhood. Challenge your neighbor, challenge your church, challenge your fraternity, challenge your sorority, challenge the Rotaries. That's April 10th. Right now we have at least 25 groups signed up already. 35 groups signed up already to do this challenge. You can go to Keep Macon-Bibb Beautiful organization, sign your group up, let them know what area you're hitting, and let's clean this community. Let's continue the cleanup effort. So that's what thank you for letting me get that plug in.
I want to follow up, Dr. Moffitt. And here's a question, because, and I'm not, going to do you like Joe Allen, former Commissioner Allen, and Ed Dufault, you just talk about years and years and years ago and all that. But in the previous administration, you guys, we had what we call a 5x5.
Correct.
Or if and when we went out, commissioners would be notified, and to be able to show the public this is what we're doing, we're cleaning up and so forth. Has that part of it changed? Because me personally, I laughed, and then I'm seeing some areas that are being just cleaned up and being promoted and shown by our PR department and so forth, that no commissioners are there, and sometimes only just the mayor. So what has happened versus the 5x5, and now that, when I say we as all the commissioners, because we are marketers and promoters of our own social media and whatever, to be able to show the public what we're doing. But it seems now that we're going out cleaning up, and we're either picking and choosing certain commissioners, or the mayor himself is doing. So in that 5x5, have we abandoned that program? Because it seems like, and I don't want to use.
As the creator of the 5x5 years ago, yes, that program pretty much has been abandoned. And again, we proactively doing some other things. And I will tell you, it's pretty much the squeaky wheel gets the grease. It's not that we're picking and choosing. I will tell you that from my office and from the departments, we are being proactive with the information that we're getting. Commissioners, I don't want to put any commissioner on the spot, but I believe that a good number, you email me on a morning and tell me an area is hit, I am purposely telling them to restructure their day and go and take care of things. So it's not that we're picking and choosing. I'm just dealing with the information that's coming to my desk and trying to get it in a timely manner.
Well, and the last comment, and I know we're in the committee session here. Last comment. It is just this administration, and you're a part of it, is receiving a lot of kudos, and rightfully so. And because of the trash pickup, and that is great. I think the community loves it. And the department heads, what I'm saying is, you guys should always have been creative. We wait until a new administration comes, and we say, well, we're energized and so forth and so on. Because you see it as in statements in the past, well, we got bigger fish to fry, more priorities and whatever. So is it the new administration? Is it the mayor that's pushing it? Because we as commission, the mayor's a part of the commission. We've all been pushing this for years. And so, and some of us are still here. So did we, is the mayor, and let's give it to him. If he's got all this juice and energy, let's give it to him. Let's give it to him.
I would think.
Is it him alone that's motivating everybody?
Well, I would think the old adage, perception is reality. I think that the perception is the reality. The new administration has come in, and some things are looking different, and I think that people's perception is the reality.
And this is the new norm now.
Well,
cleaning up
until the perception changes, we're going to keep going. And again, April 10th.
Kudos.
Making matters. I would
Kudos.
like to see everybody out there cleaning the community on
Mr.
April 10th.
Well, we give all y'all kudos.
I hate to have to address some things you said, but I feel like I need to just briefly. A couple of things is I don't do this for credit. And let me clean up one thing is we have invited each and every commissioner that checked their email to each and every press conference and each and every cleanup that we have had. Unfortunately, not every commissioner could come, but they have also always been invited. And to suggest that we only invite certain commissioners has no basis of fact. That's the only way I can say that. But and I don't want to point the fingers at previous administrations, because Dr. Moffitt never voted on this commission, doesn't get a vote. And to throw shade at the previous administration for not doing this job when you're a part of it, just to me doesn't make a lot of sense, because ultimately it falls on the back of everybody sitting around this horseshoe, including this person here. And we all should accept the responsibility, the blame, or the credit for it. So they did what they were instructed to do. He served at the pleasure of the mayor and his administration. Commissioners, if they have their agenda to clean up and to do these things, they need to get enough votes to get it done. And I don't know why it didn't get done in the past. I do know it's a focus of our administration, because it's a focus on the community. Each of those areas of the community that I visited, and many of you throughout your campaign, you had to hear the same thing that I was hearing, that we're not clean, that we don't pay attention. When you go to a particular area, Macon and Public Works and Solid Waste and Parks and Beautification are doing their job out there cleaning up, trash has been there years, not just a few weeks, and you have people on the porch clapping. To me, it tells me that we've had a systemic problem over the last several years that wasn't getting done by whoever. But we don't want to dwell on the past. We want to move forward to the future. That's what we're trying to do. Whether it's excitement by this 52-year-old man sitting here who happened to get elected by the majority of the community, or whether it's 9 commissioners are very excited about working together as a team. And finally, and I've heard from several of the previous commissioners that we've been saying this all along. So good, get on board and let's do it together. The same thing about the alcohol moratoriums, the same thing about blight, the same thing about trash. Don't take issue with the fact it's getting done now and didn't get done before. Just how about getting on board and let's all do it together and do it in a way that's pleasing to everyone. And that's all that I'm saying. Commissioner Wilder, I've held you up for quite a while we've been talking, so I know you had something to add to this conversation.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, Director Wilder, I really want to commend you and your team for the things y'all have done out there in the community, because I know y'all have actually answered multiple C-Click Fix that I have done. I have been out there trying to educate District 6 and everybody else that I run into what C-Click Fix is. I think it's working real well. And to go on the record, just because you and I share the same last name, I just met you a few months ago. But so you're not out there working for me, so no one misunderstands, you know. But it's. I want to address the one thing I remember when I went to press conferences. Me and all the commissioners were on those emails. I couldn't go to all of them. I understand everybody can't, but we were all invited, so I'm not sure where that come from. But we do have a lot going on. I am excited about what's going on. I personally ride around in other areas, not just District 6, and report see-click fix items in litter, potholes, etc. And I do want to commend y'all staff for getting on those things when you can. I know you can't always jump right on them, but I think y'all have done a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilder. Commissioner Jones.
Yes, sir. Just to reiterate, Macon is a beautiful city. I love Macon. I've chosen to live here like many of you, but it does get trashed or littered. You can get hung up on the semantics of the language. We are a littered community. Every street that each and one of us live on, I bet you can find litter. And Tim Wilder does a great job. I call on him often. I'm sure he gets tired of seeing my number in his phone, but he responds, and he responds quickly, and I call in things in north, south, east, and west. He'll confirm that for you, wherever I happen to be traveling. So this is simply an RFP. I agree totally in what the mayor said, in that we need to determine where is the litter coming from. But I still maintain that there are many people who live in our community who disrespect it every day by throwing trash out, fast food trash, whatever it is, cups, bags, on many, many roads. We're not going to be able to put one on every road. That's not the intent. We can put out 12. And we have litter laws on the books. We can deter or change behavior, and that's the whole point of it. We've been trying to educate the public. I've been here since 1970. It's not working, folks. That's 52 years. So this is simply an RFP to put it out, see what it costs. I'm in favor of doing it because if we're a clean city, if we're not a littered city, everybody benefits. It negatively impacts us just like blight does. It's a deterrent for economic growth in this community. And if we're a clean, I have people from other counties that say, you know, I love Macon, but when I come, I've never seen so much trash on the streets. So that's all it is. It's an RFP to see what it costs. I'm in favor of going forward of it from there. In my view, we need to change behavior. That's the only way we're going to clean up our city. We have laws on the books. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I got one final question from Watkins, and we'll move on.
I'm certain, just based on the other comments, that everybody on the panel is going to disagree with everything I'm about to say. And I appreciate the focus on getting our city clean. But as I ride my district and y'all's districts too, I tend to agree with Commissioner Jones. It's a lot of litter, a lot of trash. I'm not seeing that at any significant clip that we're cleaning it up at any faster rate than we did last year. Like, my hypothesis is, and I don't know the exact number, but if we picked up 100 pieces of litter in February of last year, we picked up just about 100 pieces of litter in February of this year. And that's not a critique or anything, but I'm not seeing anything that tells me much different than that, because I hadn't seen a big increase in the number of man hours that Public Works, the primary agency who does this work, has requested, or increase in equipment. I know that we've done community-based things that have helped a lot, and I'm not discrediting that. But I guess throughout all of this, not just this administration, but kind of what Commissioner Tillman was alluding to as well. And I'm not critiquing this administration. It's more of a critique on Macon-Bibb County, the municipal entity. Could it be that we just don't pick up the trash and the litter at a rate or quality that produces the outcomes that we want, a clean, cared and maintained right of way. So I guess my question is, on average, well, for this fiscal year, what is the amount of money that is spent on right of way care? The picking up of the litter, the maintaining of the grass, that's what I think, what do we spend on that? No, I mean, I'm asking, I know the director is here, that doesn't seem like there's a division responsible for this. How much is that budget?
I would have to look at the three budgets that work on this. We do a little bit
sorry,
of
is that
parks, public works, and solid waste. So it's three different divisions that we use to provide this service.
So public works picks up the trash and the litter and maintains the right of ways. Am I wrong about that, Mr. Wilder?
No.
So how much money do you allocate each year to that from your department?
I can give you an example. In public works,
Roughly, I mean, 500, 800, you can be a couple $100,000 off. What's the amount?
I hate to give you a number. I would give anybody else a number, but I hate to give you a number.
How many people work in that division? How about that?
This year alone, we used prison crews to do some of that litter, and we were not able to get the prison crews, and that's about $140,000 that was in contractual services.
So in public works, people that full-time work for us, and it gets to a question later that you have on the thing, how many people do this work? 10. 1 dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen?
If I had to give you an estimate between the three departments, probably.
I'm sorry, I'm only asking about public works who is here today.
Okay,
So,
Tim, I mean, I have to break it down because I told you before.
you're looking from the big, but I was just asking about here.
That will vary on the request that we have for each day. It can be anywhere from 10 to 20, but I have to, pick and pull in different directions.
So the right of way, is there a right of way care division or street maintenance division of your public works department?
Yes.
All right, and how much money is allocated towards that service?
I don't have that number with me right off the top of my head. I mean, I can get with Dr. Moffitt and we can get it to you.
Okay, so to my point, has there been an increase in the amount of overtime or man hours that we're putting towards the service over the last 2 or 3 months? How much?
Right now, it's overtime. I would say probably like 20,000.
And 20,000 is enough to accomplish, I guess, what we're seeing?
No, sir.
No. So what does it take to, in your opinion, is there any credence to the fact that if we wanted to pick up the trash and maintain a well-maintained street, how much more resources would the department need to do that? Or are you at the place where we have the right amount and it's just that people are keeping it dirty way too fast, getting it dirty way too fast?
It would take more people, and we're working on solutions for that now. And I believe right now in my division there is, I think, a total of 66 or 67 employees, which are not all are on the streets, and that's 14 short. But there are other avenues that we're, researching to try to come up with a better solution.
So 10 to 20, these folks are on the route picking up stuff every day?
Yes, sir.
All right, and so how often does the person clean Pinona, for instance?
Pinona is a touch and go situation because of the state route. I mean, we try not to work on the state routes.
Okay, so I'll use another street. How often do they Monroe Street in Pleasant Hill?
Monroe Street mostly comes in through C-Click Fix, and we go there, and when we get the tickets, and we try to,
So that's a
go
reactive type of thing.
Yeah,
though.
and we try to go
So-
as we're in that neighborhood, hit the other streets that's in that neighborhood, even though we don't even have tickets on them. And then once we get back to the office, we'll, open a ticket and close the ticket right back out to show that we, worked on that certain street too.
So, like, as a matter of like having a route that we clean every day, like if a street is on a route, how often is the route touched? Once a week, once a day, once a month?
It's not touched every day, and I wouldn't say. I mean, it's every week. I mean, there's a lot of streets and neighborhoods that we have to clean, and we can't spend all of our time in one neighborhood.
Okay, so like your plan for main thoroughfares then, like the streets that people are like heavily traveling that we would want to keep clean and make it look good for our visitors. We clean. Somebody goes out there with either city crew and does that once a day, once a week.
We try to kind of keep up with that on like every week or every other week basis. As I'm out, out and about checking jobs and stuff, I try to keep up through the main thoroughfares because I know everybody coming to the city, that's what they're gonna see.
Yeah, so the main thoroughfare, like coming right here downtown, coming in, we would routinely clean that every 10 days.
Yes, sir.
All right, and what would it take, or maybe for later, could we think about what would it take to move that to keep it well manicured? I guess is my question. 10 days clearly doesn't do it. I'm not being harsh on anyone.
More people.
Anything. Huh?
More people.
Okay, like 20% more, 30% more.
Yes, sir.
Something
Where I'd
like
have
that.
enough to where I could send certain groups to focus on just that.
And ideally, we would be cleaning our main thoroughfares how frequently if we were like the perfect public works?
I would say every week.
Every
the
week,
main
so
main
we should be
thoroughfares.
trying to
There's
get-
a lot of. I mean, as we mentioned earlier. I mean, we could pick litter up, and then as we're picking it up, there's cars coming down the street and just throw it right out in front of us. I mean, they think it's a joke.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, every day. I mean, if we had the people.
Realistically, if we could move from a 10-day window to a 5-day window, that would get us considerably feeling a little bit better about the beautification of our city.
Yes.
Okay. And again, I'm not trying to say anybody's doing a bad job or did a bad job. I know for, again, decades, we've shorted your department and every other department that matters on what y'all requested. And that, so it's not a critique on you individually, it's more of us as a whole, but I'm curious as to what it takes to get to a place where we all want to be. And I think we just got to have a real conversation about that. If it's more people and more money, you and me got to be vocal about saying that. Otherwise, we'll assume that if we throw up more cameras, then magically the streets will start getting cleaner. And I just don't believe that that's the case. So, but thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you.
Sorry for that. We do have a couple more. Commissioner Howell and then Pro Tem Clark.
Thank you, sir.
You get
I have
speak.
waited patiently for my time to speak on the matter that we started out speaking on that has got made this full circle around the courthouse now about everything else that doesn't involve what we're talking about. But since everybody else took time to do that, I'm gonna touch on two things that has nothing to do with what we're fixing to vote on. First, Dr. Moffitt, I don't appreciate you giving out my little secret on how I get things done in my community. But I do appreciate the service that you provide to all of us. All we have to do is send you a message, email, text. I will certainly agree with what you said. You get things done, and thank you, sir. Secondly, while I'm complaining about you, you stole my thunder about what Paul Bronson has already, the mission that he did. I have been waiting my time patiently for this, for my 2 minutes. But yes, Paul, thank you, and it's reached out into all the whole county. I was at visiting a church Sunday night, and they've put a crew together just because of what we're doing. So thank you. So to get back to why we're here and the point that we're on, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate everything you've done to help clean up, and all the participation of all the commissioners and everybody else that's been involved. In my particular community, where I see that the camera would really work would be one example would be Goodall Mill Road. We have a lot of trash that just seems to continually pile up out there, and a lot of people are saying that it's flying out of trucks or whatever. If we had a camera there for a couple of weeks, we would know where the trash came from. To think that we're going to put cameras on every corner and stop every bit of littering, I don't think that's the intent of what we're trying to do. But I will promise that there is an HOA in my community that would probably help foot the bill of this if we had something in place, because I get calls every week about that particular road. So with that said, hopefully we can move on shortly. I am in full favor of this ordinance.
Thank you. Pro Tem Clark.
Mr. Wilder, will this measure, if we approve this RFP and then a reasonable proposal comes back and we approve said reasonable proposal, will this help you be more effective in your job? Okay, thank you. I'd like to move that we call a question.
Okay. We have a motion to call the question. That's an undebatable motion. So all those in favor to call the questions, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That is the motion passes. This time we have a motion and a second on the request for RFP. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. Excuse me? No? Commissioner Lucas says no. Motion carries 8-1. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Just want to go back to, I think it's important sometimes for the public to realize, and my questions would be toward the Assistant County Manager, Julie Moore, because I don't think sometimes the public understands that Dr. Moffitt is our liaison between the mayor and department heads. And so nobody needs to think that we're just asking him all the questions or targeting him. And, you know, it's so easy to pull out all the negatives that people perceive or say, and we lose sometimes the positive of the compliments. But when a commissioner is on Facebook, Mr. Wilder, and somebody says, well, where are they at? What other commissioners? And you say, I don't know. You know, that's my point of my comment of everybody can't be everywhere. And true enough, the mayor does do a decent job as far as informing everybody. And so we all pay attention and watching. So I think, you know, playing up to the public, that's what I mean. So we can sit in here and pretend that we ain't trying to play up to the public, some of us. But when you make comments like that, I've seen it. And so everybody, you know, don't want to bring a nebulous to this, because some of y'all just can't handle, seems like, you know, if somebody says something that almost seems critical and sit here and saying at the same time, the administration is doing a good job. And this marketing promotion bringing attention to this stuff. And so I think that's part of helping. I keep emphasizing a retreat. So because see, some of y'all I thought I got a chance to meet before you got here, and you're becoming, it seemed like sometimes you're becoming a different person. And so I'm trying to, you know, just walk through this thing because and get to know you on a different level. But you just like you're watching and paying attention to me, I'm watching and paying attention to you. And as we grow, I think we all hopefully become a better commission. But I think because we didn't have those things in advance retreats and so forth, it's all a work in progress. And I'm appreciative, and wherever I could be, I'll be. I'm appreciative for what, again, y'all are doing to bring attention to this cleanup. But I want to say to Commissioner Watkins, when Dr. Moffitt says that, that's a compliment about him not wanting to give you numbers, because everybody knows you are the numbers guy. And so take it as a compliment. So a lot of y'all take some of the stuff as a compliment, and, you know, we're in a committee. And so, yeah, this is the time we're supposed to discuss stuff. And sometimes we get off track. And so I just appreciate you, whether you believe that or not. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Commissioner Tillman, we love you, buddy. We are going to move on to some other items that hopefully won't take as long, but I come to realize during my time running for office is that anytime I did a post on trash, I got a bunch of likes. So it tells me that people are very concerned about this issue. So we spent a lot of time on it, but it's good time and it's conversation that need to be had. And we can't move forward together and truly lead by example if we don't take those steps. So I'm okay with spending the time necessary to take care of the important issues because they're important to our community. I mentioned these other items, and they're all these next 4 items on the agenda. Are different companies, but one the same theory. So if we ask questions on one, it should take care of the rest, but hopefully you've already read the materials and there shouldn't be additional questions on this. But just let me preface this by saying we have used temporary services already to do manual labor type pickup, trash, dumps, things of that nature. That's why I know we spent more money, spent more man hours, but don't always confuse with paying more hours is getting more work done. Simply just being busy and getting paid doesn't equate to doing quality work and more efficient work. And what I have seen, and I rely on data, the data suggests, and we keep up with this. I'm not sure what happened before me. I can't control any of that, but we keep up with data, and I know how much tonnage we picked up this year as opposed to last year. So I know there's a difference. I know how many community cleanups we've had this year alone compared to last year, so I know the difference. I know how many street sweeping dirts we've had done this year as opposed to last year, so I know the difference. But we can't continue to do this on this level without hiring new people or having temporary services. These next 4 items on the agenda are strictly that. They're seasonal help that we can allow people to come in, that we don't have to provide all the benefits of pensions, health insurance, workers' comp, all that information, but we can do it seasonal. So when the grass gets high, we have a unit we can call out, and we have these people to choose from that we send an invitation to bid out that can respond to our labor needs. We have shortages in departments, and Mr. Wilder can tell you that he's had an average of 8 to 10 shortage as well as each of the other departments because it's hard to fill these positions despite the pay. This is not work that people strive to do always, although it's good work and we have good people doing that work. We must use temporary agencies, and we put this RFP, you have all the information on how this is processed, how we put it out for invitation to bid, any questions that were asked, and what we asked to respond to. Keep in mind these figures are different because these are the figures, the fees that they charge on top of what we said we wanted people to earn. And I think our threshold was around $12 an hour, that we want to make sure that after all the fees were associated, we wanted that person to net out $12 per hour on an average basis. These were chosen after getting 7 bids in as people that we can choose from, and we can start these folks out working immediately upon the need. So I'm going to begin with item 4A. Contracts for implementation of renewal. Item A is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an independent contract agreement with Environmental Differences in an amount of $16 per hour per laborer to provide necessary labors as manual labor projects. That is my motion. Can I get a second? Got a motion and a second by Commissioner Wynn. Any questions, Commissioner Lucas?
Mr. Mayor, I was going to move to approve items A, B, C, and D.
Okay. We have all right. Commissioner Wynn, did you have anything further on that?
That's what I was going to do too.
Okay. Commissioner Watkins.
And my questions were more broad, so that'll work for me once I'm yeah. But I've heard you say that I heard it mentioned in the last meeting too, that the rate was $12 an hour that we were looking to have the employees be paid. And if you can show me in this first contract, it'll satisfy me. But I don't see that in the contract that we have in the documentation. I see the 16 and the 40 pounds and the 8 hours, but I don't see any consideration of that type of phrase. I'm sure it's here. It's a lot of document too, 45 pages. So I very easily could have missed that line.
Yeah. I'll ask the attorneys to come forward on that, just to assure Commissioner Watkins that was part of our invitation to bid, and we only selected those that could pay at least that amount.
And my other question while they're working on that was, if we're $12, if we were hiring full-time labor, or if we were hiring someone, I guess even as a temporary seasonal employee for the county, what does that equate out to? Like, because I know a lot of this theory is that the $16 that we pay is ultimately less than what it would cost us to pay a part-time employee because of taxes and benefits and that type of thing. So I'm just curious. I don't think it'll affect me either way, but I'm just curious.
Right. Yeah. Our lowest salary is around $26,000. It was like $12.50 an hour. But then you add on benefits, which is about 30 to 40% of that. So it could easily be $17, $18.
Okay. So and that would be for a full-time employee.
Yes, sir.
How would that change for a part-time or a seasonal, like our lifeguards?
We don't offer benefits, but again.
So if we paid if we paid like a temporary employee on a short-term contract, $14 an hour, and he worked directly for us, that would be a flat something else is added on to that, right?
Well, the time it takes for us to go through the hiring process and things of that nature, but as far as salary to that person, no.
So it would be cheaper than the $16 here.
Yes, technically yes, because the only thing they're getting is a salary. But again, that's seasonal, temporary. But in this case,
and that's the same. I mean, that would be the equivalent.
Yeah.
So, and again, I guess it gives us more quivers, so to speak.
More tools in the toolbox.
More tools in the toolbox, but not really a cost-saving mechanism. Not really allowing us any.
Well, I think it's a cost savings in the overall big picture. Thank you. All right. I think it's a cost savings in the big picture. Again, investment in the community, helping people get the jobs.
I mean, but if we
more
wanted to
readily
empower
available.
people, we would pay them the $16 an hour or $15 an hour, and they could be part-time staff with the Macon-Bibb County, and that's way more empowering and uplifting than
Well, again, it's a process also. When we talk about empowering people, we go through a whole regiment of hiring as we advertise, drug tests, background, things like this. These are people
these are things we're clearly expecting out of our temp agency, right?
Well, their process is different than ours, and they incur the cost of that process. We don't incur it. Payroll, all those behind the scene costs. So yes, they incur all those costs.
Attorney McNeil, you want to answer that other question, or you want Attorney Groover to answer?
So the contract incorporates into it the RFP that was published. And so just looking at the first one, on page 17, it's page 4 of the exhibit, page 17 of the PDF, it says vendors shall compensate day laborers at a rate no less than $12 an hour. That was published as part of the RFP, and that's incorporated into each of these 4 contracts, those terms and requirements.
So if I'm right, that's the RFP that you're reading.
Right, it's
but
the
like
RFP.
we're not actually in the contract that the vendor has with us. He's not reconfirming that.
The RFP is an exhibit to the vendor contract, so
Okay.
it's part of it. Yes, sir.
So just it would have eased my mind a lot. It seemed like in that compensation section, if it would have covered such a thing. But that's because it's implied, and clearly everyone understands that it's implied. I'm not an attorney, but it's clearly implied. No one would make the mistake of paying somebody $10 an hour because we've clearly explicitly said 12 here.
Right, they would be in breach of the contract if they're paying less than that.
Understood.
Yes, sir.
Understood.
Okay. Thank you. I think one other thing to add to this, not to belabor the point, is that each of these companies can provide anywhere from 10 to 20 people that we need. So we have 4 of these folks that we could, if we needed 60 or 80, we could get fairly quickly and easily. We tell them where to report at, how much it is, how many people we need, and we go accordingly to what they may have in their bucket there. But we can't do that. I mean, we've tried to fill positions for solid waste, parks and beautification, and public works. And with the turnover that we've had, we've been able to fill those positions. So it would help. And I think, Mr. Watkins, you have advocated for getting grass cut on a more regular basis. We can't do it with the staff. We went through some numbers with you to indicate how much, if we were to do that many times, how much it would cost. We couldn't even provide the personnel to do that on a hiring basis. So this is just to actually help us be more efficient. Whether we choose to use them or not, it's going to be based on the needs. It's not just these groups as well. Bowden needs grass cut out there. Instead of hiring a full-time person to cut grass at Bowden, you've got that. You've got the Public Works. We've also got, I think, Tobesofsky, instead of hiring a full-time maintenance person, and you can't use jail labor out there, they've got people there as well. All those folks are asking for people that we can't provide them as far as the number of workers there. So this goes to all of it. And I do believe we have a motion to do A, B, C, and D all at one time, and we've had an agreement on that. Commissioner Bronson, did you have a question? I'm sorry.
Hey, just out of curiosity, where are we at with, my apologies. My apologies. Hey, where are we at with like Adopt a Road type programs? How are we managing or tag teaming with them to kind of come in, or are we promoting that deal where if a church wanted to adopt a right of way or what it may be, that they can go out and they be in charge of cleaning that area up? Or, I mean, I think that would kind of be the route to take in this situation here to minimize.
That's going to be part of the Clean Streets Matters. We've had it before. It's kind of been abandoned over the period of years.
Gotcha.
So it's something that we look forward to starting back again after this April the 10th cleanup. Thank you.
Cool.
We do have a motion and a second for all four of those items. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. All four motions items carried to the agenda by the consent agenda. We're going to move on to item E, which is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a purchase and sale agreement with Wade Ford in the amount of $91,981.48 for the purchase of two cargo transit vans, be paid from the Board of Elections grant funds. These come directly from those funds that were approved previously that was applied by the Board of Elections. That's my motion. Can I get a second? Got a second by Pro Tem Clark. Any discussion in that matter? Hearing no questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries to be sent to consent agenda. Appointments to authorities, boards, and commissions. We have one item today. That's a resolution reappointing Henderson Carswell to the board of Bibb County Department of Family and Children's Board. He served a very vital role there. They have asked for his reappointment. I have agreed to do so. I think most of you know Henderson Carswell with the Sheriff's Department, and that is my motion. Can I get a second? Got a second by Commissioner Jones. Question, Tillman.
Yeah, I support this, but I thought we had another one. Mr. Attorney, I need to add something to the agenda. Is it how we do? And maybe I'll share it because I support this, but on appointments, we just had recently two persons sworn in at the Board of Election, and they sent the names over, and we have not selected that fifth person, although they sent the names over. And I was looking to support. I wanted to add to the agenda to go ahead and let's approve that fifth member, Mike Kaplan, over at the Board of Elections. I know they sent those names over, and I think I'm familiar with one of the other guys as well. So,
actually, they sent. Well, we can address. They sent three people over. They just had members sworn in this last week.
Right.
And my preference was I did not add it to this agenda because I just received those names. You've got three new members of a 5-member board that did not participate in naming the fifth member, and I think it's important to have them come on as new members and have a previous body bind them to a chair for the rest of the year. So that's why I did not choose that. They've been sworn in. We have another meeting coming up on the 13th. We could add it to that agenda and see if they have any
I'm
items.
just trying to clarify. Ultimately, it's up to this commission.
That's correct, based on the names that they give you. And these new members may have additional names for us to consider.
Well, the commission, I mean, I don't know. I just always thought that worked like that for the Hospital Authority, that they submit 3 names. But I mean, we don't have to accept their 3 names. I mean, we as a commission can, choose our own. And so I'm just saying.
I disagree with that. I think that's not correct.
Okay. Well, I just want to say that.
I know that's not correct.
And you say we're going to add it to the agenda, but I'm just saying that I just know that what we had previously in this last election cycle, I think was a good group, and I'm hoping that the ones that come on will be just as well. But I just thought that the way Mike Kaplan handled himself, during this past election, I'm just hoping that we can just go with him. I do know of the other gentleman. I don't know of the one. But and so when it comes up, I just think we ought to add that, and I don't know why we can't go ahead and add that, because I mean I think we all are familiar with Mike Kaplan. He's been there before, and so my understanding was those names came over more than 2 weeks ago. So I don't know how it got boggled down.
I just received them, but I will say that Mr. Kaplan will remain on until at such time he's not on there. So there's no harm, no foul on doing this on the 13th. I do feel obligated to the 3 new members of that Board of Elections that they have the opportunity to submit a name, whether it's the same name or different names. I'd hate this. It's like the previous administration selecting who's going to be something on this board here, and you not having the input when you have new commissioners that come on here. I think that's doing a disservice.
So who are they? Because I know Somebody, I didn't realize that Renda was a Linda Rinder,
Dr. Fick, will you come forward to the mic, please, sir?
because Miss Rinder had came off the board, and
Process or the nomination or appointment process to the Board of Elections.
Yeah. Let Dr. Ficklin address those names, and we'll answer your question, Commissioner Watkins.
We sent 3 names over. We tried to amend the names, but because it was one of the names that we sent over could not vote, who was the name that was brought up by Mr. Tillman, then the vote was 2-2. We tried to amend the list so we could get some others on there, because there is a concern that if what happens goes on now, we will have one woman on the Board of Election, and of course trying to be equal and provide for equity. Some people were thinking that we need to nominate another woman because we sent 3 men over.
And can you give those names, Dr. Ficklin? That's what I wanted you to come up and talk about.
Mike Kaplan, Charles Murphy, and
Mike Daylor. Daylor. Mark Daylor.
And Mike Kaplan, he was sent over as well.
Okay.
Those 3, and there were 3 men, and we some people on second thought said we ought to try to be a little bit more equitable and send a woman
And
over.
thank you, Dr. Ficklin. And I believe to answer Commissioner Watson's questions, the Board of Elections itself would nominate several members, 1, 2, 3, however many they want to, send to the to mayor to select one of those, to send it to commission for a vote.
That is the process.
And then the mayor would do that. The commissioner would vote it up or down, and then we move to the next person and to the next person on those lists.
Exactly.
If none of those were agreeable, then they would actually do the same process again.
That's in the law. What's that?
5-member board.
5-member board, yes.
One is selected by the Democrat Party or nominated by
two selected by Democrat, 2 selected by Republicans, and 1 selected overall.
One selected by
all 4 of them.
It's supposed to be
supposed to be a neutral person.
A neutral person.
And
it should be.
The rule says that the mayor and the county commission make that appointment, I assume?
The mayor, we sent over a list to the mayor. The mayor select from our list, bring it to the county commission. If the county commissioner votes it up or down, then if it votes it down, the mayor goes back to the list and submit another name until you all decide who you want.
Okay. And so right now, the Board of Elections, from my understanding, the Board of Elections sent over a list of 3 people.
Yes.
And all 3 of those were men. So the mayor is requesting a list that has a woman as an option.
We're not saying the mayor requesting that. Some people on the commission feels that we should be more equitable.
Okay, so
and the mayor has requested, that we have a larger list to be included,
larger list, yes,
based on race and gender. I don't think that we're making that a requirement, but that's to be open and honest. That's what we talked
if I'm
about.
understanding that at the end of the day, the commission and the mayor need to make a decision on one appointment.
On the 5th amendment.
The other 4 have already been determined. There's
Yes.
1 remaining. And we just need to provide them with the name. And currently serving is Mike Kaplan in that role?
That's correct.
Okay.
And he continues to serve that role until, if and when he is replaced.
There are no term limits, or at least the term limit isn't something in jeopardy at this point, and he can either be reappointed, or the mayor can make an option to go with another name.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any term limits they have.
Before this started, I didn't know what y'all were talking about. I think I'm on the right page now.
There are no term limits because
Okay.
the
Okay.
2 Republicans have been on there over 20 years.
Okay.
And the commission will have the final say-so on who actually gets voted up or down. It's just something I bring to you like I do Henderson Carswell here.
To understand that we're appointing the chair, or right now Kaplan is the chair, and
He's the chair. We appoint the 5th person, and they select the chair. Because Dr. Ficklin's been the previous chair, and he's certainly not nonpartisan.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Commissioner Bronson.
For Dr. Ficklin, so the intent here was to bring on the names they sent forward was pushed back pretty much, and the idea was to bring on another woman to the board.
I don't know.
Just to expand the list that the mayor can select from.
So out of curiosity,
and include some females on it.
what name was sent back to them, women wise or female wise, if I'm using the right terminology here, for that?
There hadn't been.
So there was no name sent back that was okay.
Commissioner Bronson, the reason is they had a 2-2 vote on
Gotcha.
amending the agenda to add it because Kaplan could not vote since his name was one of the 3 in consideration. My only thought is to let the new members who's going to be there with this chair, with this 5th person, not necessarily chair,
Have that opportunity to do
have an
so.
opportunity to have some input. If they choose these same 3 people and bring it before us, I think we're fair to that, but I don't think it's right to do that without that since they just
Cool
came in.
beans. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
At least in regards to the Board of Elections. Okay. Now that we've settled that, we have a resolution appointing Henderson Carswell. We already have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously to be sent to the consent agenda. Moving on to honoring Buddy Barron. 6A is a resolution to honor the 100th birthday of Mr. Young, Buddy Barron, sponsored by Mayor Pro Tem Clark. That is, you like to make that motion? Got a motion by Pro Tem Clark, and I get a second. Second by Commissioner Jones. Pro Tem Clark, you've got the floor.
Yeah, I'll be very brief. Mr. Barron is a neighborhood icon in Pleasant Hill. The good folks at the Little Richard Resource Center celebrated his birthday this Saturday with a drive-by birthday honkathon on the front porch of the Little Richard Resource Center. You can see a beautiful portrait by Disto on the side of Sharice Stevens' community center in Pleasant Hill. If you'd like to drive by and see that, but he has been, he's just a staple in the community, and it's not just his birthday, it's his birth month because he is turning 100, and I just found it appropriate that this commission also honor and celebrate with the Pleasant Hill community.
Commissioner Tillman, did you have your light up? No. I'm sorry. Commissioner Lucas?
Yeah.
Commissioner Lucas?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly support this, and I think we ought to do as much as we possibly can. The research is showing that many, many more people are going to reach the age of 100 because of better medical care and other kinds of things. Who knows, some of us might make it to 100. The odds are with us. And so I think as a commission, we ought to kind of explore and see how many, what do you call them? Anyway, 100-year-old people we have, and have it as a regular kind of a tribute thing. And maybe once we are kind of clear and we can have people back in again, maybe have as many 100-year-olds to recognize. And we did the veterans one time, the Vietnam veterans one time, and they were so pleased that they had never been really fully recognized. And so I think this would be something that we could really do that would just mean an awful lot. We've had 2 100-year-olds to pass away recently who were members of our Macon-Bibb Senior Center, and they were still very active and everything. So I think this is great, and I endorse this.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas. We do have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously to be sent to the consent agenda. We had item 7 as a site visit, but I hate to leave in the middle before we have our resolution regarding the voting. So we're going to go ahead and move on. Commissioner Watkins, do you have a question? I'm sorry.
I'd like to make that exact motion.
Yes, we got you. Now, we're going to go ahead and handle it while we're here. So the time is, I can't see that clock, but it's close to 11 o'clock. We do have lunch prepared for 11:30 before our site visit promptly after that to the landfill, as well as to the convenience center. So I know everybody's passionate about this particular issue, including its sponsors, and I'm looking forward to hearing a very good conversation on that and vote afterwards on the resolution. I would hope that we could at least finish by 11:30 if we get long-winded, sir. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds great. Thank you. The next item is 8A, which is a resolution requesting that the local delegation oppose any legislation that would reduce or limit voting rights, opportunities, operations, or access, and that the governor veto any such legislation that may be adopted. That ordinance was sponsored by Mayor Pro Tem Clark and Commissioner Lane Lucas. Which one of you like to make that motion?
I so moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Lucas, a second by Commissioner Clark, and I think Commissioner Bronson may be telling me he wants to sponsor that motion as well. Yes, sir. And Commissioner Watkins, we got you?
Tillman.
Okay, Commissioner Clark, you had a question or comments?
Yeah. Yes, I know that we are on a time crunch, but this is incredibly important, and I've spent the last couple of days going through the different committee substitutes, and I hope y'all will indulge me for a second to talk through what we're why I joined with Commissioner Lucas to bring this forward. These bills are changing, and the best way to do that, I prepared remarks to go through the most recent committee substitute, which was amended yesterday in the House Committee on Special Elections, or the House Special Committee on Elections Integrity. So I'm going to read these, and then I'm happy to answer any questions that folks may have. I know this resolution may seem vague. I know it may also seem like a gratuitous attempt to insert this body's opinion into a conversation where it should not be. I've heard it said that our actions today may not change a single mind, and that it may be a slippery slope that leads us to comment on varying hot-button political topics at the state or national level. And lastly, that it can create a costly rhetorical divide in this board over something that is out of our control. I want to start by saying I understand all of that. I truly believe this body works best when we work together and do everything in our power to check our politics at the door, sit in these chairs, and work together for the greater good. I would not be proposing this resolution if I did not think that's what it does. The fact of the matter is that while the legislation in question is primed to stir emotions by amending laws that we cannot ourselves change, it is changing laws that directly impact our ability to govern, directly impacts our neighbors' access to decide who governs them, and impacts our appointees' and employees' ability to conduct free, fair, and accessible elections. This legislation has changed several times. There was a House version, a Senate version. There were committee substitutes and other bills that died on the vine before crossover day. But it seems that the ideas that would directly impact this body's, our body, and the local board of elections' autonomy and ability to conduct free and fair elections have survived the legislative process thus far. And it's precisely those aspects of this legislation that concern me the most, and what I'd like to spend some time explaining, Mr. Mayor. First, Section 2 of the main bill in question, Senate Bill 202, grants the state election board the power to appoint a single individual to replace an entire local board of election at their own discretion. In Macon-Bibb County, the two major parties each pick and appoint two representatives to our board of elections. Then you, Mr. Mayor, recommend a nonpartisan chair based on the recommendations of the Board of Elections, which is subject to this body's approval. Under the current version of this bill, all 5 of those positions, including the chair that was appointed and approved by Macon-Bibb County's duly elected representative body, us, and the local Board of Election, can be replaced with a single person, and that can happen without our input. Should this bill become law, our autonomy under home rule guidelines our autonomy under the home rule guidelines of the state constitution and code is unquestionably at risk. To make this fact further egregious, Section 4 of the most current version removes the Secretary of State as a voting member and chair of the Elections Board, making this post subject to an appointment of the legislature, a body, I may remind us, is made up of 236 differing opinions. With the state legislature already having appointment power of 2 of the 5 slots at the State Elections Board, this would effectively allow the state legislature to appoint the majority of this board. That, in turn, means that if this proposal as written becomes law, a board of unelected officials in Atlanta could then fire and suspend any county board of election employee subject to a petition and hearing under the provision found in Section 5 of this bill. Let me repeat that. A body of unelected officials in Atlanta, appointed by the state legislature and not us, can fire our employees without a lick of input from us. A further troubling aspect of this proposal, as written, is that much of the proceedings in question can be done without transparency. Section 6 maintains that these deliberations that the State Ethics Board must enter into regarding our employees' future in the administration of our elections are explicitly not subject or open to the public. And finally, if this weren't enough, Section 6 requires that we, the county, continue to pay the salary of a removed employee that they have unilaterally decided to fire. Talk about an unfunded mandate. While there have been cleanups to the original version of this bill, as I read it, it is in no shape to be passed. It still bars our Board of Elections from applying for grants to help us with the cost of elections administration. It arbitrarily and confusingly sets the date you can return an absentee ballot to 11 days before an election, when right now you can return it all the way up until Election Day. It completely bans out-of-precinct provisional ballots except for 5 to 7 p.m. on Election Day, meaning that if you show up to the wrong polling place on Election Day before 5 p.m., you have no remedy. You cannot vote. And it reduces the early voting period for runoff elections to just 5 days. Just 5 days of early voting and a runoff election period. These measures collectively will surely decrease access to the ballot box. They will create longer lines, more cash-strapped boards of elections that are potentially run by unelected political appointees in Atlanta. Mr. Mayor, these are just a few of my concerns with this legislation. I watched yesterday's committee meeting, hopeful that many of these concerns would be addressed, but they were not. In fact, one of the changes ostensibly made it harder for us as individual county elected officials to initiate a petition or investigation of our own election board, while making it easier for individual legislators to do so. It raised the threshold of us being able to initiate an investigation from just one commissioner to a majority of this board, and changed the threshold for legislators to potentially just one of them in our delegation needed to initiate deliberations. The work we as a body have been doing here has been efficient and effective. I am very, very proud of it. I truly see this legislation as a deliberate attempt to make our employees and appointees less effective and efficient. And there is no question at all that it strips local controls from bodies like ours across the state. I'll leave the speculation as to why they are doing this up to somebody else. I don't know the author's heart. I do know that we live in a rapidly changing state, a state with an electorate that is younger, more diverse, more engaged in the electoral process than ever. Increased participation in our electoral process is fundamentally a good thing. It is something that we all encourage every 4 years. I watched all 10 of us up here encourage this just months ago. And I believe that we owe a supported, open, and accessible election process to those we are encouraging to participate. And I do not believe this legislation ensures that. In fact, I truly believe that the letter of this proposal does the opposite. It is up to deliberate bodies like us, bodies that draw our power from the democratic process, to protect that democratic process. We must do so no matter an election's outcome or who is in charge, even if that person or group or party in charge is one that we most vehemently disagree with. While I hear it being said that these measures are intended to protect the integrity of our election process, I cannot find those protections in the words of this legislation. What I can find in the words of this committee substitute in question is the usurpation of duly elected officials of our charge of conducting a free and fair election. We are better than this legislation being proposed by the General Assembly. This resolution before us today is bigger than the words on it. Our neighbors trusted us to be stewards of the democratic process, not some unelected board in Atlanta. That's why I ask for your favorable consideration of this resolution, not for the sake of a political argument, but because, like your neighbors, I trust you. And like you, I'm proud of the Macon-Bibb County team. The Macon-Bibb County team that we just spent, 15 minutes praising for the election they conducted last year. I'm disappointed in our colleagues in the state government don't share that sentiment. But I'm hopeful that our actions today will let them know that we have serious concerns about this potential overreach, because they still have time to change course. Thank you all for indulging this, and I ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Pro Tem Clark. Commissioner Howell?
Well, I don't know that a whole lot more needs to be said. You know, we've gone about a month now talking about this, and I really hadn't seen anything in writing. I know that we can take this deep into the weeds and discuss things that are really not relevant to what we're talking about, or we can come together as a board and agree that regardless of what party's in charge in Atlanta, if we go along with what they're proposing now, that's going to be detriment to all of us. Seth did a great job Mayor Pro Tem did an excellent job of explaining his thoughts on this. I have spent time, and I'm not as good at reading through all of the stuff, but I have spent a lot of time last night, and we have had a lot of conversation about this, and he's right. The way what they have now reads is they basically strip us of all of our power as a local delegation, and basically tell us we're going to get rid of all your people. We're going to put one person in charge, but yet you're going to still pay those people, and you're not going to have any say so about it. So I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but I mean, I would like to amend the resolution as it is to say that let's focus on what you covered just then, and I would certainly be in favor of that.
Okay, we got a motion to amend by Commissioner Howard. Is there a second? Second. Got a second by Commissioner Wynn. In regards to this motion amended, Commissioner Watkins, do you have a question on that?
No, it seemed like no, I don't have a question on the amendment, but more on the, I guess, main motion of the situation.
Okay.
And so in total support of this bill. I appreciate the sponsors for taking the time to write it up. I had a question though, as it related to our local board of elections, because I can, in Commissioner Clark's speech just then, it reminded me of a story I heard about a meeting about a month ago, where there was a motion, and I assume the Republican Party must have made the motion here locally to have the election manager and the board and the administrative functions of that office no longer report to the actual board of elections, but directly to the county manager, which would pretty much nullify the point, the oversight and the power of the board of elections. I'm glad that failed, but did I understand that process correctly? No one else familiar with that motion at the board of elections? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so yeah, if that happened, I'm not exactly sure of the genesis of that, but I would ask the administration. I know it could be more power within the administrative function, but to refuse such a thing, the board of elections autonomy is important to making sure that our elections are considered fair and autonomous things. So, yeah.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
and I would also ask if y'all would mind. I know this only speaks on state issues, but locally we seem to have an issue going on.
Well, I think this motion is on. I'm not sure what you're talking about. I do remember something about who the Board of Elections supervisor would answer to, and I think that amendment was not successful, or that ordinance was not successful with the Board of Elections. Is that correct, Dr. Ficklins? Okay. Okay.
Why is the administration trying to do that? I didn't realize it came from the administration.
It didn't come from administration.
I'm sorry.
Dr. Ficklin was on that board.
So in this instance, I should separate you from working for the executive branch of government?
It's a personnel matter with the Board of Elections that we can't discuss out here, but I'll tell you in private.
It seems to be a policy issue right now on who's in control of the Board of Elections. Is the
Board of Elections is in control of the Board of Elections.
and that's current now, but if we took away their oversight of the administrator, it seems like that would.
No, that was not the. Did you read the?
I guess I'm asking right now what was the
well,
intent.
you need to read it. It doesn't take away anything from the Board of Elections authority. It just lines up the administrative end of reporting to the county manager, so that the county manager will make sure that the funds are correctly spent and advised the supervisor. Currently, the supervisor reports to the Board of Election. That's 5 separate people. None of them are over there every day. And of course, you can imagine some of the things that can happen when there's no direct supervision.
Well, so they are an independent board, and I understand that that
Will
board
still remain independent under this resolution.
But the hiring and firing of the director is one of the most important functions when you're considering oversight with that type of board. And it is akin to the same relationship as the planning and zoning with us. We do not have hiring and firing power.
You all are the only people that have hiring and firing power over the supervisor of the Board of Election.
No, the Board of Election does.
No, the commission
the Board
does.
of Election doesn't have it. It's the commission that has it,
Yeah, the commission does.
not the Board of Elections.
The Board of Election gets to choose, gets to nominate who they think should proceed, but actually this Board of Commission decides who sits in that seat.
Grant, we do have final confirmation power over these folks, but again, these are the initial actions currently happen at the Board of Elections. If there was going to be a firing taking place, they would need to take a vote on it.
No, sir.
No. Okay, so you can go over there today, you and county manager can
No,
can
county
ask for a
commission.
fire.
The county commission could get together as a group and take care of that issue.
Right. Currently, the executive branch, they operate separate from the executive branch when it comes to the hiring and firing of that person, which is different from the director of public works or finance. Like the mayor has direct power. Y'all can make a decision in the mayor's office today whether or not that person has a job. My understanding is that maybe it's gentlemanly, but
Certainly, I can assure this, and I want to ask Attorney McNeil to come up because I don't want to get Dr. Ficklin and giving legal advice. Certainly, the Board of Election director now does not serve at the pleasure of the mayor because it was left out of the charter. And I think
that was intentional. That's how it is all over Board of Elections.
No, I'll let Attorney McNeil address that. We've been through this issue and gotten legal opinions on there. So Attorney McNeil, if you'll just lay that out for us briefly, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is an issue I've gone back and forth with our elections attorney William Nolan on this for the last several months, just kind of making sure we understand the nature of the appointment and termination power with respect to the election supervisor and then the reporting requirements. And so the process is to appoint a new election supervisor. The Board of Elections nominates and this commission confirms. To terminate an election supervisor, it has to come from this commission. The Board of Elections has the power to ask the commission to take a termination, but that is not a required step for this commission to terminate an election supervisor. And so the resolution that Dr. Ficklin proposed that you were referring to comes out of a discussion that I was having with William Nolan about what appears to be a gap in the I guess management structure of the election supervisor position, because the local act that the General Assembly passed in the 60s that creates the election supervisor position gives the Board of Elections power to set policies and relate, generally what her duties are, but it doesn't say anything about kind of day-to-day management, and the board only meets once a month. And so there was a question of, it's just impractical for a 5-member board that meets once a month to manage day-to-day, a full-time employee. And so the purpose of that resolution, as I understood it, was just to clarify that even though they're setting the general policies that govern her operations, let Dr. Moffitt or whoever the county manager, as a full-time employee that's on staff all the time here, just kind of manage things like leave requests or budgetary issues or anything that comes up on a day-to-day management type of thing that's not like a large-scale policy pronouncement issue that the Board of Elections has authority for. And so it's not shifting anything that's in the law, it's just clarifying an area where there was no law that we could identify.
So I understand them to be a quasi-governmental board with their own separate board, and there are a lot of similarities to them in the health department and planning and zoning. Do we have oversight to the degree that you mentioned, time off and shifts and all of that stuff when it comes to planning and zoning or the health department? Or are those boards, does it work in the same hiring, firing mechanism of nominations and whatnot?
I don't know off the top of my head about health department. I can speak to planning and zoning. I know planning and zoning was created by a joint resolution of the city of Macon and Bibb County back in, I think, the 70s. And so because it was created by this what is now this government as successor to City of Macon City Council and the Bibb County Commission, this commission would have authority, I believe, to dissolve the entire planning and zoning board. But within the framework that was set up, there's authority delegated for how people are appointed to that position. And
Right. So
you know,
I guess I'm
confirm
asking, we have the
nominations.
authority to dissolve, and as we stated through policy, we can make changes to all of these organizations.
Now, so the Board of
But
Elections
I
is set up by state law.
Right, and it
P&Z
requires
is
some-
set up by y'all.
Yes, and both of them can be changed. It may take more policy work
Right.
and bureaucracy, but both of them can be changed by policy.
And I believe the
But
health
current
department-
day
go ahead.
planning and zoning,
Mhm.
the actual administrative oversight that you just mentioned,
Mhm.
is that in any way doled out by the current county manager, or are they completely autonomous when it comes to that?
No, my understanding with that is that the executive director reports directly to the board of
Thank you.
planning and zoning.
Okay. And same, my understanding, the same is true at the health department.
That's correct, but I don't know as much about
What
that
we're
one.
asking here today is a significant change, it just seems to me. Well, no one asked, it failed the board for whatever reason, but it is a substantial change in the way that the Board of Elections operates, and it would minimize the purpose of them if.
So like with P&Z, it's expressly spelled out in the legislation that created the P&Z board that the executive director reports to the board for day-to-day kind of activities. And so that's, I think, a difference that's not found in the local act that created the Board of Elections.
Okay. Thank you. Are you?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Watkins, you have further questions?
No, I'm ready to vote on the main motion.
And Commissioner Lucas, I know you have a question. I want to make sure before we take a vote, we clarify where the amendment is, but you want to speak now or after that? Okay. So, Attorney Groover, would you mind summing up the amendment, please?
Let me read it as I understand it, what Commissioner Howell's amendment is. And I'm going to read the entire thing, including what was left in the ordinance that y'all will be voting on as an amendment. So, as I understand it, this is what Commissioner Howell's proposal would be to be voted on. Now, I'm going to pick up with where it says, now therefore. Now therefore be it resolved by the Macon-Bibb County Commission, and it is hereby so resolved by the authority of the same. The local legislative delegation is hereby requested to vote in opposition to any legislation that would usurp local government's power, authority, and ability to conduct election operations in the same manner as currently provided for under the law, and reduce or limit the voting rights, opportunities, or access of any lawful voter or prospective voter, period. Is that
the amendment? Okay. So that is the amendment.
okay?
Commissioner Clark, we've already got a second, I think. Commissioner Lucas, you have a question?
I just wanted to say something on the motion as amended, the main motion.
Okay.
Once we get this amendment
Do the
passed.
amendment first?
Do the amendment first, and then-
Commissioner Williams, would you like to say something on the amendment?
Yes, sir, I would. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I concur with the amendment in the fact that the Mayor Pro Tem seemed to focus on one area of the voting legislation that's out there now being considered by our state legislature. So, I mean, and I disagree with having us lose control of the Board of Elections locally and what it does. However, I may support other legislation regarding voting rights that are out there. And so the "and" part of this amendment still includes us saying that we don't want them to vote for things that may limit voters' rights. I really do support the amendment, particularly regarding what Mayor Pro Tem discussed, but I cannot, I'm not sure what other things are out there. I do support some things that are out there. I do know there's other voting legislation being considered, and I support some of that. So I'm kind of torn of what to do. If we could separate those and just say that amendment, I agree with the amendment from Commissioner Howell and just that part of it. That's where I stand on that, because I do think there are other voting legislation going on that I do agree with.
Thank you, Commissioner Wynn. Commissioner Lucas, did you have something else? Commissioner Howell?
If you're talking to me?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Commissioner Wynn, I agree with what you're saying. However, we've been through, like, this is about the 5th or 6th or 7th or 8th thing. I read through it last night. The thing that struck out to me is the part, the latest thing is the part that I've amended. The rest of it it's just talking about the same thing over and over. But this affects us, and as a board of commissioners in Bibb County, I want us to be united in sending a strong message saying that we do not go along with that part of that legislation.
But you support other voting legislation that's out there. You're supporting it or not. Again, I don't know what you're doing beyond this particular piece of legislation. I agree that I don't like this particular piece of legislation, but I don't know how you feel or what your feelings are as far as supporting other voting legislation that is being considered by our state legislature right now.
Yeah, I can understand that. And I appreciate Commissioner Howell has amended that motion. We've read that into the record. I think we're all familiar with what that particular motion says.
Right, but couldn't we separate that from making two motions here? I agree with what his amendment is. And then
I think you can
do-
separate that, Commissioner Wynn. I'm just not sure how successful you'll be.
Pardon me?
I think you could separate that. Yes, it could separate that.
That.
You got a motion for that?
I don't have a motion written out or anything, but I'd like to move that we separate the amendment from the other particular resolution being considered here.
Okay, so that's a motion to divide the question. It requires a second. And if
Got a second by Commissioner Jones.
Okay, and if it's I'm sorry, I got a.
Yeah, I can't hear you.
It's
I
a motion
can't
to
hear
divide
you.
the question, and if it carries with 5 votes, it's a 5-vote majority. Then you would have effectively two separate resolutions.
Yeah.
One with the usurpation language, and then one with the reducer limit language. It would be separated. So that's the motion, and the second, that's what this vote would be on.
Okay.
Just to separate them.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. On that particular item alone, we'll take a vote, and it must receive 5 to move forward. Otherwise, we're going to fall back to the amendment.
Right.
Does everybody understand that? Okay. Commissioner Watkins?
It may help if the sponsor of the amendment could, specify in what ways that you're in favor of disenfranchising voters. If maybe we're all in favor of it, and we can just quickly amend the thing. So that would be helpful to me.
Are you speaking to me, Commissioner?
Yes, whoever yes.
I think there are things out there that I agree with we should do. I think that there's things in the election process right now that need to be reconsidered. You know, when I started voting at the age of 18, which was a long time ago, we had an election day. Now we have election weeks and months and weekends and Sundays, and I just think that there's a lot of things that go on now with our elections that I don't agree with, and I think we need to bring it back in to where it used to be. I think Election Day should be a holiday. That would help things. But there are other things out there. You can vote if you want to. You can get an ID, a picture ID to vote if you want to. Have to have a picture ID to drive. Have to have a picture ID to enter some kind of, to buy tickets sometimes, to buy alcohol if I want. But I just think that there are things out there that are not suppressing voters. I think that if you really want to vote, you can vote. You can find a way to vote. And back in the day, the only absentee ballots, as I recall, were if you were out of the country, maybe serving the country, or out of the country for business, or maybe some kind of health condition. Now you just don't want to come in there to vote. There are ways to get in there to vote, plenty of ways to get in there to vote. So I think there are other things out there, and I don't have a list of them to give you, that I would not want to vote for right now. I like the fact that we want to take this out because I agree that we should have local control over our Board of Elections. I just want this commission to say, listen, let's just separate them. You can keep this same wording as the second resolution, but then do the other resolution in regards to the one that Mayor Pro Tem was talking about. That's what I want to do. You can still have the other one and vote for it.
All right, we're going to confine our conversation now only to that second undivided question, parliamentary wise. So that's the discussion of whether or not we want to divide that up. And we do have a motion and a second, so we need to go ahead and vote on that issue before we proceed further. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the undivided question, please say aye.
The divided question.
I'm sorry, divided question, please say aye. Nay? Okay. That motion fails. Now we'll move to the amended by Commissioner Howell. Would anyone want to be heard on that amendment? And I believe Commissioner Jones had his light on.
Yeah, I'm trying to make sure I understand. I like Commissioner Howell's amendment, and I appreciate Pro Tem Commissioner Clark's articulation of and his attention to all the details. Totally in favor of free, fair, and accurate elections. I don't, we currently have 17 days to vote right here. I believe in local. I don't like the state preempting us on anything. That's kind of a blanket statement, but typically I don't. I believe in voter IDs. I believe in accurate elections. I don't like ballot harvesting. I believe that people have the right to file an absentee ballot. I kind of like the no excuse, but so the first blanket statement I may not be in favor of simply because I just don't like to jump on a train blindly. So, and you made some good points. It's not going to impact what they do. It's not going to impact what the governor does. But I also understand we're expressing our feelings. So I don't like the state preempting or usurping our powers on local elections. So I like the amendment. I would rather vote on it separately, but that's not what the board has decided to do. So I yield.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. You good? Okay. Thank you. I think that was smart. Okay, we have a motion and second on the amended item with Commissioner Howell, from Commissioner Clark's original and Commissioner Lucas. All those in favor of that amended motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, that motion carries 8-1. Now we're going back to the original motion with the amendment. Get a motion by, we already have a motion? And a second on that. All those in favor of that, I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. No. Okay, we got that 7-2. Commissioner Jones and Commissioner Wynn. Now, any question? We've already voted on it.
Item that we were talking about with the Board of Elections. I've followed the Board of Elections for a long, long time, and there have been concerns about the Board of Elections and the fact that there are some on there who have never been to training. And there are laws that are changed, as we see, laws that are being changed every legislative session, and then there's federal legislation, and the folks who are in charge of carrying out elections have to know what the policies are, what's allowed and what's not allowed. It has been concerning to me. I think Dr. Ficklin and Ms. Powell and Mr. Kaplan have all gone to training, and they've been going periodically so that they keep up with what changes, what you're allowed to do, what voters can do and what they can't do, and how you secure elections. And our board, because of those folks who have gone to training, we have been able to stay within the law and then provide opportunities for people to come, for provisions for senior citizens and how you deal with COVID and all of those kinds of things. And I think our elections were the smoothest that they've been in forever. So we because of their training though, but there are some who have never been to training. Another thing is the supervisor of the Board of Elections carries out an awful lot of functions, but there needs to be some other arm that looks at the functions of the Board of Elections other than the Board of Elections, because they are not there but once a month. And the supervisor, from what I understand, has never been evaluated. And so I think there is a need for us to kind of look at what the gaps are and fill those in. That's part of our obligation as the elected representatives in this community. So I just wanted to add that as one who's attended so many Board of Elections meetings, and I've been involved with voter registration since I came back home from college, and I've seen it change, and we're at a point now where we need to tweak it just a little bit so that we maintain that efficiency that we've been praised for in these last several elections. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas. Likewise, I agree. I think that I'm not sure who has the authority to do that, because it is a complicated issue between the Board of Elections and the charter and the Macon-Bibb County government. Personally, I feel like they haven't had the training. They should be removed. I think it ought to be a mandatory requirement to have training, just like you have to have training and the rest of us have to have training. So maybe we can have attorneys look at that. It's not an attempt to micromanage, and certainly I'm not trying to usurp any power that I have with the Board of Elections. But as we know, I think Dr. Ficklin, that was his amendment, had nothing to do with me. We didn't communicate. I didn't know about it at all myself. But I do know that once we had a transition period to this administration, we looked from top to bottom the charter, and one thing I wanted to be clear on was what authority I had and did not have, so I wouldn't overstep my bounds. And I wanted to know who served at the pleasure of the mayor also, so I could evaluate those folks to determine whether or not it would be my recommendation that they remain or not. And I think that's why some of these questions began to be asked. The last 13 years, you hadn't had that issue with Robert Rickard here, and certainly since consolidation, that hasn't been an issue because of the charter really hasn't been amended very much. So I think that probably created the conversation around looking at these different positions, no different from a couple more that you haven't mentioned today on whether or not there's some clarity. And I've seen a couple of people surprised today about the process of how Board of Elections is handled and passed and how they choose people. It's because it really hasn't come up before.
Right.
And maybe our administration is shedding some light on some things that may or may not have been used before that maybe we intend to look at and make sure that we're within our guidelines to do. So certainly not an intent to usurp anything. We just want to have some sense of clarity before we act. And of course, in the budgeting process, it's always important. But I think we've learned some things today as far as the Board of Elections. We do know that they serve at the pleasure of this commission and not this mayor, and certainly input with the Board of Elections. So we'll proceed accordingly. Thank you for your great conversation today. The decorum was excellent around such a lot of hot topics, and I continue to give you the honor, praise, and glory, if it may be, for moving along such smoothly and efficiently, but yet getting your points through. We do have a site visit today, so we're not going to adjourn the meeting. We're going to recess the meeting to grab some box lunches, to go down to the landfill, and as well as go out to the Pea Ridge location in Monroe County to visit a convenience center. We're going to take a recess, but we're going to adjourn at completion of that site visit. If no further business brings us here, we're
Mr.
now.
Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I say that on an issue like the voting and the unfunded mandates, we had a truly bipartisan and collaborative vote on that, and that speaks well for this body, that we could see through maybe some of our own personal feelings about a few issues, and we could see the damage that could be done to our structure and our authority as a government to handle the functions of government. So I applaud this group for the support on that. And I think it will mean something. The legislators do take stock of what local elected officials pass.
Thank you,
in their
Commissioner Lucas. And
deliberation.
Commissioner Jones, you're going to take us into lunch, sir.
One last thing, as I told Commissioner Clark, I'm not in favor of any component that he read out in the Senate Bill 202, not one of them. I'm firmly against them. I am for free, fair, and accurate elections.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. We're now in recess.